Oh, okay, cool.
I can do that.
I don't know who you are, and I want your case.
I did my sophomore year, and that was when Mimi was on the team as well, because she was in high school, and she won the No Shave November contest, and then I decided not to.
Yeah, I tried that. Didn't work well for
Yeah, if
me.
you even tried it, put $50 on it with Turner, and it still caved, and now it's Turner $50.
Just like after a couple weeks, it just looked so gross. The mustache was getting out of hand.
You couldn't do it for $50.
No.
It wasn't worth it.
Oh, you already got me on the email chain.
Yeah,
I like
dude.
where this is going. I didn't even have to ask.
On top of things.
All right, cool.
So did you minimize that?
What?
Did you minimize that?
Yeah. I just got to make sure everything's up and running real quick. Yeah, we're good.
I go fill up my water bottle and go to the bathroom, and I come back.
Yeah, good one. It's really not a big deal. How's the working team doing?
DB is 5.
Wow, very cool.
Yes, yes.
Dartmouth is really jumping dark on this whole topic thing.
Yeah.
The roll with the Wildy. Yeah. Steven came in and just threw the little mark off the chest. I don't know.
Nope, this mic is directional,
What?
which means it only receives noise facing it.
So you can hear you right now, but not us.
But no, that's
Oh, well, I'm not loud enough. It's like shit. So.
Bosu sucks.
that's what we chose to say without repetition.
People who are watching this live stream are not like the Bosu stalkers of the world.
I know, it's a lot of high schoolers.
Yeah, those two Michigan can sucks. I was walking up the stairs and oh my god, tell me everything about it. Why? What is happening?
Crack off. Yeah, you're expecting AP. Yeah. Wrapping it up for you.
They freak me out. I'm not gonna lie.
Did you were you at the Harvard tournament?
No.
Okay, well, one more getting dressed up.
Which one's the tall one?
Yeah,
That
one more.
Okay.
He always freaks me out. He wore like a doctor's lab coat that was smattered in, I'm hoping red dye, but was intended to portray blood. He wore like a doctor's mask. And, it was pretty terrifying, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, if I had to straight head around, I feel like I just leave my computer there. Monitor from afar.
Did y'all date in Michigan game yet?
Oh, we debated that today. And also at Harvard.
And at Harvard,
We're
right?
1-1. So,
Uh-oh.
What happened in your last debate?
Bad memories from late.
annoying thing.
Has it been
They
since
went for something.
Yeah.
I guess biopower was dead or something. The liberal order. How's it violence?
a little bit, not a little bit, a large portion of it really was hoping anarchist feminism really took down your ass.
Yeah.
I was really hoping for that. I was really all for it. Why didn't you get on board, Miranda?
Because I'm a bad feminist.
Oh my god.
I'm a little
She at least
crazy.
believes in the
That like
government.
a
Come on.
like get on board with us and like, betray the Krugs. Not the Krugs. Not the Krugs, not the bees.
I'd be good.
Yeah.
One second.
Oh, and I have a
The earlier this starts, the earlier.
I'm sorry, Sean.
you can like there go.
You sure? Okay.
If they just want Russian health is the ideal opportunity to push UN drug for failure, legitimize performance policies, risk repeat of 98 with reformers of science favor the stats code, Mugadi sheet 14 unit gas, in 2016 provides 60 opportunity available to policy debate international drug policies now limited. In fact, repressive drug policies now been widely recognized. These issue highlight the most pertinent example we have living marijuana reforms, merging perspective between 6 and UN gas, importantly drug policies, and the South Pacific pushing the margin international community inadequate. Preparation the international community was repeated in 1998 UN gas with during which reforms practices were five favor the science guys of the stats code. U.S. diplomats are undermining reforms only federal legalization will force them to put their diplomatic clock behind you, reforming UN drug treaties, God, 14 million American independence, leading the world out about the prohibition of medical international networks and activities, responses to track down the practice of corresponding the worldwide impact reasons from the USA lip service to progressive approach to the Wake Washington and give you quietly to also gymnastics and UN reforms will encourage Russia to shift away from zero tolerance to an LH and the Russian Federation, the party to all three UN drug regimes, drug commissions, the convention plays a significant role in drug policy, the international treaties play the integral part of the legal system, international treaty to supersede national legislation, the purpose of reflecting on domestic law, modern Russia persists zero tolerance approach. Government officials regularly claim the Russians approach in order to meet the UN Convention of Drug Eradication. Will Minister of International Affairs emphasized that the total preservation of those destruction of the government's own issue rather strict adherence to the UN Drug Convention. Zero tolerance creating an HIV epidemic in Russia, Eastern Europe, Central Asia. Progressive international consensus will counter the Ministry of Health misinformation and shift Russia's drug policy back to 11 waves of HIV are skyrocketing with Russia's population from Russia's punitive drug policies. Injection program should be limited to those covered drugs. No programs prison 24 people are injecting drugs. Drugs 30,000 people died during deaths for you making heroin hard to come by. Only worse than the problem of 2 million people who use the opiate source federation is not sure the lowest level low cost services. The Russian military felt directly threatened harm reduction program Eastern Europe, Central Asia. 20,000 people will die per month. That'll fuel demographic crisis. Element 13. Russia's telling Russia will lose 20,000 people in months. AIDS. Russia's experience fast spreading epidemics in the country of history, roughly winning the HIV positive. Russia has the highest percentage of HIV in the affected world. The Russia's protection system just not following international protocols. Disease AIDS came to Russia rather than other parts of the world. Against spreading the margin starting creating the epidemic is spreading. Russian military is uniquely vulnerable. Against there's been 25-fold increase in HIV in the potential 18-year-old refugees. Annual new rate of HIV starting the spread of AIDS is not on the framework of turning the country's national security into transferring our forces of Ukraine. The Baltic States of the Soviet Union secret weakness and point out the HIV, the common epidemic to break loose. The epidemic spread under control. Nuclear miscalculated conflict. Ever 11, the Russian demographic decline to probably to more unpredictable after the world station decline with the Russian military leader lower the threshold for the Americans are using nuclear weapons above the country's official words. The nuclear weapons in Russia talk about the chemical beliefs in social gravity. The demographic was if Russian demographic decline continues, they're all basically Russia and not be able to sustain the illusion of Moscow becoming from miscalculation. Afghanistan, North Korea, Iran, Pakistan, Central Asia, Russian delivery becomes more stable. The criminal's behavior might well become risky. Extinction. Star 14. The presence of U.S. forces nearby will create a significant chance for mistake in the U.S. Russia forces fighting upon each other. The possibility of nuclear conflict is new escalation. Russia will not allow defeat Russia top nuclear risk. She's sufficient to terminate the military conflict with firebrand. There would be inevitable escalation. Peer review scientific study produced new weapons of nuclear firestorms between 50 million, 150 million chances of produce ice age, or the condition limited growth is making it impossible to go through most people who perish from nuclear famine. Marijuana legalization changes the course of international drug policy. Marijuana Malrock and Supra 14 UN will deal with big drug regime in 2016. UN CPs that report health based approach to drugs and war and drugs. But you need to speak louder and engage in American apparatus and make debate. Those debates are proceeding without use of shield. Americans pushing the issue, including helping for cooperation with the U.S. and engaging in Washington and debate, flourishing and stalling the office remains available to sweeping reform sensible regulation drugs like cannabis. The government is a critical force to make them take hold. Marijuana legalization will be a catalyst for transforming the global prohibition regime. Law 13 by commemorating the global regulation of marijuana. We will be internationally and pay for regulation because marijuana market laws could be used to make the first steps to government to encourage other governments to experiment with legal regulation to automatic criminal black marijuana is a civil actionable mechanism of experimentation about the government eradicate marijuana use criminality for the government's regulating medical market control by use with considerable interest of the rest of the U.S. needs. They call it international community will follow shipping this case starting for defense of the federal government removing the marijuana and the list of bans of decisions simply the market for tobacco legalization reduce the consumption of marijuana is an actionable mechanism for reform through a domino effect transform the global prohibition regime. The U.S. will capitalize on the government sending states for your future international and domestic policies. U.S. leadership will change the course of international policy. Success all 10. The U.S. drug policy charging the enormous global influence administration space and global policy environment receptivity progressive drug reform greater than discussed. The officials rethinking the proposition policy of the administration act the administration should recognize the existence of public waste structural fashion but to empower all people to view all alternatives to coke or poppy tobacco away from prohibition to the U.S. and a progressive leadership role in dramatically change the course of international policy inaugurate a new era of treatment drug dependence accompanied by international standard effective mechanism for redress of dead shoes. Morocco. The Moroccan Rift is dependent on cannabis for survival. There's no alternative pulling out of poverty. Jane 37% of cannabis originates from Morocco. Cultivation takes the Moroccan Rift. The mountainous region, the highest rate of poverty, more than 7,000 inhabitants make the illegal living from cannabis. The inhabitants' culture, not only the word climate, hold allows for cultivation class of free presence and have enough food in form of the years the top from cannabis dealers, exporters, and distributors. Cannabis exports prevent Moroccan regime collapse, trade deficit, and poverty about that trade. The DB 13 legalization push exports and reduce Moroccan trade deficit. The country has been adapting the Arab thing, operating the legalizing cannabis would bring stability, increase the prosperity, and boost the rural population to grow. Do not need to get a fair price and judges also selling criminalized market authorities encourage farmers to land for farmers trying to make a living season to choose cannabis and stabilizing Morocco, stabilizing the entire continent for fam in 14 economic development screen preventing unemployed youth from disadvantaged experienced position in the prominent role Moroccan from late across Africa, the vital combination of regional stability. Morocco and global economy is developed into regional watch along the search for the 100 signal that's been looking for and failure risk genocidal nationalist wars media 13 Africa there's the potential for conflict in the Congo is not the situation is the rise of the Christian Muslim intention indicating potential social conflict is real. The foundation of our world is dynamite. The potential of new conflicts in the wars of the 20th century history today. The existence of the hero ideal for our type of group formation. The war create a world of training money for legal commerce rights of generation who may become factors destabilize the environment and increases more direct role in potential conflict happens in one corner of the world does not stay there. Potential for new conflict, the war that kills millions is real. U.S. Moroccan relations at a crossroads plan resolves it. Scott Wall in 13. The administration goes beyond ceremonial ports underscores America's commitment to the partnership of American leaders looking forward to defining the agenda focus on stability of the states. Responsibility policy to bomb Moroccan leaders strengthen the moderate Islam, Islamism, Wahhabism, the Morocco business throughout the country. Like Islamic history with the government pulls a bulwark against extremist characters and radicalism born and in Morocco. Coping mechanisms offered lots of the people as well. The kingdom is not without popular unemployment, this high state resources, direction, the economic opportunity, or reserve, within privilege, lead, king will push it, U.S. investment in Morocco, the regional crisis competing for the action of U.S. decision making Morocco by the gets to produce the price in the environment, the Arab leaders, eager to call the Americans and be huge, the White House, to fund substantive way to return the king's favor, cooperation, solve disease outbreaks, as terrorism, 14, the U.S. announced the largest health campaign to control Ebola, the local and hold infrastructure deficit, decades to conflict people dressed in spaces come knocking the hold them away when he do not return this leaders to the other trust of outside the state, run away, causing the for disease spread, stopping conflict outbreak, plus, and the community of solving the problem required cooperation, the only way to build something required time by the was remember there are opportunities to build other contingents in the U.S. cannot do this alone. Communities will live the catastrophic disease over 1 billion people affected by these maladies. Cooperation is critical. Infectious disease control is Obama's national priority. Rising 14. Obama just told the Ebola death tolls in the Islamic rapidly operating not contributing to the Ebola bacterial travel because we're biological threats and not the live acts and or act of terrorism there. Our gates are global security meeting the strike requires global we've stuck in the way that the response outbreaks before the world is unprepared. What is the political will, dedication, resources, consequences, and action or two within 2 days when you're dangers the Polish market people African by weapon cannot be unknown danger microbes can adapt human survival set risk Mahorn and 11 the parasites that have the ability to adapt the winners developing admirable skills. The fight for survival in different scientific especially based on paranoid the parasites humans are colors one disease and gender human survival outbreak West Nile stars or the birth we live in a Salam okay King Muhammad will facilitate Iran talks Madani 13 about my face skepticism over our allies over Iran who have good relations with Morocco hoping the lockstep outrage over the Morocco help go between the Arab states losing the sanctions of the political conflict King Muhammad has influenced global revolution something of the political Iranian talks in the civil war in Syria is real Palestine peace in Morocco has engaged with Israel the key to be useful he built because there's a certain policy in the Qatar with America as well as the elephant in the room prevents cooperation causes war Nuber in 14 Israel has been the elephant in the room Israel affairs negotiating part of words and take our insertion of counter Iranian practices to Iran that Israel has been carried out good well just Israeli regime to refrain from countries groundbreaking Rouhani funding the political middle recommendation support ongoing nuclear siege Iranian Israel reconciliation is taking place U.S. Iran diplomacy to succeed if Israel should be Israel fails to still bring Iran to Washington rewarding the Obama no committee give afford back a nuclear war with any time the technical including a regional global economic power Red sector capability Syria Lebanese has well Turkey Russian coalition and technically prolonged it for that oil shipments so the economy will lose Russia China Venezuela Brazil Turkey form alliance club U.S. Germany Russia China rearm overnight then threaten to intervene in circulars as spark World War III cannabis sharing clubs are necessarily important to solve the Moroccan refueling killer 14 clubs are increasing the important and regular industry membership in the 2000 pro club to meet the demand by enlisted markets and clubs in Argentina Colombia Chile they went for the UN Commission to gain popularity next step of the about include growers in developing countries supplying the club national agreements to allow import and export growers successful providing hash from Morocco consumers of preference over marijuana will persist the illegal supply in the club situation will continue as long as the regulation model based on domestic growing hash production is the most important part of the economy the Moroccan will continue efforts to undermine the farmers livelihood will need to considerable improvement thus the plan the United States federal government should amend the Control Substances Act to establish an exempt for state level marijuana laws for states that establish cannabis sharing clubs that can import for personal use states and territories of the United States to establish cannabis sharing clubs that can import for personal use and that resolve Moroccan instability along to an 11 the CSE's members of the decision making capacity control over the production of the process of the creator that within the local hot trade producing consumer need to find the balance of mutual profit the economic activity no profit entrepreneurs and businessmen also cultivation that functional separately from distribution out losing many possible alternatives regulation of drugs legalization it's talk about thinking about capitalist market rather than changing the info criminal mafias and ecological bailout to democratically wanting to improve the quality instead of making a few prices richer it solves the rape the crime 800,000 Moroccan livers off the cultivation of legalization will allow farmers to reduce exports reduce sugar deficit to whiten 23% of GDP but also in historically distribution and uprising that top of the regime we have to ensure legalization done in optimal fashion think of exports and foreign investment as a promising sector not good sector I'm good.
Okay. So just to be clear, internal link to first advantage is global modeling of harms reduction.
Global modeling of a new regulatory regime for marijuana.
Okay, and is that through harm reduction policies for Russia?
Health-based approach.
Health-based approach. Okay. Internal link to Morocco is based on all three scenarios are based on Morocco legalizing.
No.
All right, so just the first scenario for the instability is based on Morocco legalizing?
I don't think any of them are based off of Morocco legalizing. It's all about the U.S. importing from the Moroccan Rif.
Okay, so the U.S. imports from the Moroccan Rif, but it's still illegal.
The Moroccan Rif farmers are already producing cannabis. The question is whether the importation is legal for the
Morocco
U.S.
doesn't legalize is a loaded term. Morocco does not have to entirely legalize marijuana in order for them.
It just needs to produce marijuana.
Does Morocco have to legalize the export of the?
No.
Well,
believe so.
Yeah.
How do you solve
Sure,
farmers?
yeah.
Okay, so they do legalize the export.
They
of marijuana.
legalize the export, yeah, but that's
Okay.
not necessarily what legalization is.
Okay.
Well, they already
So
export
why
marijuana a little
is
bit.
so why
the
is
question
Morocco
irrelevant.
key to all African instability?
Yeah, our evidence indicates that radical individuals in the Moroccan Rif are uniquely likely to spiral out of control, and the
How does
King
that affect the
Mohammed.
rest of Africa?
Yeah, our FAM evidence says that Morocco is the vital internal link because they represent an intersection between Islamic nations and out Western countries. And
Okay, so like our Africa has been unstable for the last 100 years. What makes
obviously
it
true. Our FAM evidence indicates that economic development in the Rif means that there would be less likelihood of radicalism spiraling into a large-scale conflict. Our need evidence indicates that new eras of conflict are opening up as a result of radicalism. As long as the plan is able to resolve those issues, then we resolve the internal link to a large-scale African conflict that would draw in NATO powers.
So relations, your internal link to U.S.-Mexico relations. It says that it would be. It's just the Sakiville evidence.
Yeah, but
That's
it's
the
about
only one?
Morocco,
Okay.
not Mexico.
So it says Mexico officials look forward
Morocco.
to USCIP closing the unhappy chapter of April's abortive effort to impose a human rights monitoring mechanism on disputed Morocco-held territory. What do you do about that?
I don't know which part you read from, but the internal link argument here first is about Morocco, not Mexico. But secondly, the evidence is about foreign direct investment into the Moroccan Rif. Our evidence says that the Rif is not being targeted by U.S. policies right now. The only way to empower the Rif is through
Yeah,
Canada's
but the
policies.
card also says that we have to close the unhappy chapter of April's ability to impose.
It says we're going to.
It says we're
Or
going
it
to?
says the
Okay.
king will push for U.S. investment
Yeah.
in Morocco.
So the way that it works
What
right
is
now is
right?
that investment in Morocco is happening not in the Rif. The
Another
question is whether
question, your
we can
King
empower
Mohammed
the most
solved
impoverished
Iran
areas.
nuclear talks. The warrant seems to be, we want to be regional players of clout, says Morocco's foreign minister. Obviously, they
No,
want
that is
to,
not
what
the
they
only
do.
warrant. Our evidence indicates that the king has unique diplomatic clout with Israel and Palestine because of historic linkages of his family between the two groups Israel and Iran, because of historic linkages between his family and the two
Okay,
groups
so
that are
why does
conversing
the
in
U.S. buying marijuana from Morocco
Right,
make them
that goes back to the
farmer
relations
Iran?
internal link, right? So
Where's
because
the
we empower the farmers in the Moroccan Rif, it shows that the U.S. is committed to.
It just stabilizes the regime.
King Mohammed.
Okay, I'm saving it. The order will be 5 off. Then the prohibition advantage, like the Russia stuff, then the Morocco advantage.
So
Right,
put that
Russia,
put
Morocco.
Morocco first.
Sorry, Morocco advantage, then
Russia.
Russia advantage.
I'm just gonna call it Mexico this entire debate.
Did I call it Mexico?
No, Cody's been calling it Mexico.
I was reading. Whatever.
Yeah, King
We know it's
Mohammed of
Morocco.
Mexico is a very powerful ruler.
We know it's Morocco.
I'm about to pull up a map on my computer.
To be honest.
jokes will be made.
No.
No,
The second time we read this advantage, I did accidentally misname the ruler, the king of Morocco, which was pretty obviously pretty racist.
Him and Ellis just had like this 2-minute cross-ex conversation about King of Europe.
He is a person. I think he's the king of
Jordan.
Well, isn't it's his first name Abdullah?
No,
No,
Jason was just being right.
no, fair enough. I was trying to make excuses for you, but
Said Jason very well.
it's Morocco, then Russia. Okay. Anyone not ready? Topicality, legalized meat production, use must be legal for all or most people. Caucus L12 legalization is the opposite of prohibition. Legalization makes treated a drug the way we treat other commodities, production, distribution, retail, sale, possession, all and use would all be legal for all or most people. The model of cannabis clubs will criminalize the sale of marijuana, just decriminalize its possession. Caucus and L12 is stepping on growing drones allowed for the growing sharing and trading among members. Trading laws not criminalize possession only. Sale of clubs operate on a non-profit basis. Vote negative 8 limits to explode the research burden by allowing any substance of production, distribution, sale, possession, or use for any groupie ground. They expect the distance nationwide legalization. Next off is politics. Obama will prevent Congress from taking the Iran deal, but sustain capitals keep Collins in 11-12. Republicans John kept the left get a veto for majority that changes the leader's office enable sanctions. Let's just move forward without that would be enough never to challenge the president's veto, but the numbers of tightening Wall Street, the fierce political battle will be fight, and the person can win. The White House always already won one skirmish over Iran. New sanctions guarantee the fracturing of the coalition against Iran. A deal did not survive forever. The politics on Iran being triggered for Obama by the White House. It shows whether they play political hardball over Iran and Vienna. Meeting leaves time and collapses of the deal is extremely unlikely in status quo. Road to level 11 diplomats could take the hold out for some agreement might be reached. There might be time to talk now between whoever to get this done. Russia's toxic shooter was optimistic and agreement could be reached. If we are not there, I think we'll have time to develop an alternative. The Omen talks. There's no deadlock. Deadline. Breakdown negotiations is very unlikely. The plain cost capital and trades up with the rest of the agenda downs. To as much as you may want to reform drug laws, the president would risk an extraordinary level of legal capital. Any easy federal law the issues ranked as higher on the list of legislative priorities. You cross apply their impact from the 1AC. Their impact from the 1AC to Iran. Now, next up is the pharma. They said the pharma industry is powerful now, but legalizing marijuana destroys it by trading off its most dependable. There's a revenue Jackson 12-1. Powerful industry managed to lose big pharma. The global pharmaceutical market be worth $1 trillion by 2014. Industry giants have warded off patent clips in the large cash reserves to acquire small companies with rough product pipelines. The last thing companies want to see current product lines that are producing dependable revenue flow. You've identified legal marijuana. There are countless maladies. Marijuana has been believed to help physicians would be currently be reluctant to prescribe legalized marijuana. National mandate provide physicians with covered medical marijuana prescription for the dense and currently prescribed drugs is non-alcohol pharma likely to tolerate well. Loss of pharmaceutical revenue kills biotech innovation. Running 8 a single alliance with the life of the biotech company. The same may be just join or money for pharma partners. The big pharma companies need biotech expertise beyond their own in-house R&D. We're paying the parties of biotech firms survival depends on alliance revenue. Then biotech innovation is key to respond to biotech Alton 12 in the wake of the 2001 anthrax has used by the government on the bull path improve cultures preparedness for bioterrors, and since then biotechnology companies have partnered to help this whole mission important. Advancement projects made up for less decade medical down ratios developed and identified core challenges and key recommendations for the future. Experts agree on trends targets may have with this public partnership is the critical juncture of further funding research and development necessary to ensure the proximities and the U.S. population protected. Successful bioterror attack causes extinction. Framework 8 advances in synthetic biology make it possible to engineer pathogens capable of extinction. Pandemics knowledge, equipment, and materials need to engineer pathogens are accessible. Unlike other weapons, pathogens are self-replicating and not only small arsenal become exponentially disrupted. Next, opposite Canada, they said the Canadian economy is growing but at risk. Markets in 11.6, Canada's GDP will grow by 2.3%. Growth is projected to strengthen the main monetary potential. Downside risks, legalizing pot crushes Canadian growth and ripples throughout the economy. Sin 10, it is massively see pots and $7 billion annual dimension with the wider ripple have with retail to get heads well real estate at 10,000 homes are used as grow. So legalizing pot will have to take the economic impact the unfurling economy helps drive Canada tourism and many unemployed workers from the stagnant forestry sector turning to growing pot. Canadian growth heads up Quebec secession neutral and D9 an important factor influencing Quebec will be disastrous with the Canadian economy. The president prosperity reigns in Quebecians. Voters may worry that the province will suffer economically if it separates and secession kills relations cause nuclear war. Lament 94 Russia's represent Canada's fracturing of Quebec secession. Russian North American relations move for sub-freezing highlighted reassess Russia's arsenal analyze the Arctic water missions to hard defenses. A Russian bomber appears to enter North American airspace tracking a nuclear warhead with the 5 times of Hiroshima. Next off is the counter plan. The United States should criminalize nearly all marijuana by strictly enforcing existing federal laws criminalizing marijuana, adopting Hawaii's hope standards nearly all. He said probation marijuana for all, nearly all holistic narcotics. The United States should announce that it supports other states pursuing harm reduction legalization strategies to address drug use. The United States should implement a plan for a robust U.S.-Morocco relationship as per the Florence evidence. The Hope Solves Prison sets a model for harm reduction. Climate 9 Hope achieving providing its possible enforcement committee corrections politics are early searching for workable alternatives to mass incarceration. The fiscal crisis as state government scrambling community corrections often depend on the probation without community corrections to do stand for prison reform is likely the way that made social Hawaiian experiment so important. The biggest opportunity to lower incarceration is to transform probation to outpatient corrections and creating a robust framework for the relationship solves Florence 13 to achieve a robust relationship with Morocco. President Obama should continue support for ongoing reforms between military stability, exercise, and increase intelligence sharing, and promote Morocco's model of tolerance. Commit to a structured trilateral U.S. relationship with Morocco. Support the need for additional economic reform, prioritize resolving the U.S. integration with the account for Moroccan sensitivities. Obama should assure the King of Washington's commitment. Now go to the Morocco advantage. Morocco will never legalize. They quote politicians posturing for votes. HT 1070 Islamic movement to play his head to break a deeper taboo against illegal drugs. Marijuana. Once the facts are likely to alcohol relation. The government spokesman refused to discuss the draft members. Accused those who made looking to boost their stake in the Rift Valley ahead of the key local elections. Next, these people are looking for sympathy amongst from drug barons, and there's no escalation. Great powerful intervening in Africa. Sudan proves Barrett 5 was making be wary of intervening after experiencing war in Somalia and Rwanda on the continent. Now, what seems to be get involved in Africa's wars and despite political hesitation while discussing conflict in Africa, even after the U.S. used label genocide in Sudan, only proclaimed sanctions while discussing the suggestion that no powerful nations want to get embroiled. The intervening nation has very little interest in instability, key to prevent African industrial development. UN economic development in Africa report 11. The report particularly reports the stability and developing industrialization in Africa. Africa is becoming an important source of export to made that could form the basis for industrial development, political stability, necessary conditions for industrial development in Africa. That destroys African biodiversity, great levels of industrialization, not sufficient to treat the impact. Testing 2K development, these just for to disrupt Africa's ecosystem, but African countries intensified development, high levels of environmental degradation were generated. African countries that achieve the high levels of development they aspire to. Activities that successfully disturb stability will lead to the collapse of the whole system. Alteration will only come to harm from its environmental is destroyed to such an extent that it no longer is able to sustain life. Key to prevent extinction, oceanography. 2. Africa's biological diversity is global significance, likely to have still contained of the richest assemblage of plant life on this planet. Plants are key to life on the earth and protecting elements in the biodiversity, providing a framework of natural ecosystem that provide the habitats for animal species to make life on the earth possible for humans. And Africa's ability is key to justify strong EU foreign policy. Loyal 5. Normative references to humanitarian imperatives have been used to legitimize and foster European foreign and security capacity since stability. Africa's that's a threat. African stability has been designated as a stake of importance for European security, help to legitimize the creation of new interests of EU policies. The referent objects not European is a survival of African civilians. A strong EU is key to solve extinction. Rotten 2. Only a strong EU is big enough to deal with globalized disease, control, conspiracies, environmental threats. Only a strong EU is big enough to regulate the interests of society as a whole. Corporations like the EU can ensure that humanity prevails over the force that will otherwise overwhelm us. And African stability is key to Chinese regional influence. Horde 9. African developments and generous also they develop infrastructure and agriculture and extend in their security efforts transformed by African leaders as a step forward decades of stability and the African leads of aim. The West for the continent's elites are fast embracing the Chinese model and influence is key to resource investments, fuel Chinese economy. Strike 9. Lacking energy reserves, China is working hard to lock in investments in Africa. The country sought gas to satisfy consumption of liquefied LNG terminals, cut off natural or African resource. China's growth stops and China economic class cause great power wars. Innocent 9. Unpolitically the social and Russian challenging the authority to CCP justified your economic advance can't maintain growth. Extra sphere the country's latest mindful state legitimate by exploiting nationalism, directing populism, headed out to outside targets to policies that risk maintaining, making great power conflict come to fruition. Morocco relations are resilient. Joya 13. Morocco views had diplomatic relations 1777. The U.S. Morocco relationship today remains extremely strong. Morocco collaborates with the U.S. in a number of areas. King Mohammed attempted to restrict this partnership to accelerate democratic and economic reforms to mutual interest and common idealist goals of the United States and Morocco has been strong allies. The CIA, FBI respected and maintains strong ties with Mexico and Morocco. Morocco has purchased $3 billion worth of military equipment from the U.S. The Morocco U.S. relationship developed due to Morocco sharing simple foreign policy objectives. The U.S. has direct effect on military and economic relations. The bottom of Morocco has clearly withstood the test of time. Morocco is not powerful enough to affect Iran renegotiations. Their evidence 13. Mohammed's White House visit comes at the opportune time for the last time. It's not particularly powerful. American ally. Your evidence also has a thumper in it. Skip it. No impact to disease. Posner 5. Homo sapiens has managed to thrive every disease in 200,000 years. National second favorite return. Although the reality are fitting because the genes are well spread the germs not kill the host too quickly. There's no danger that the pandemic would cause extinction. Now go to prohibition. Their authors are making premature claims that drug war can be rapid at any time and still being fought of drugs outside marijuana. You're 14. Your way legalized Portugal. You criminalize advocates are feeling opposite. Euphoria is premature. Decades of prohibition has been widely understood. This is not substitute for pushing prohibition at home or abroad. Search legalization to serious impediments to recent de-escalation. Versus marijuana only. Public opinion is less open to legalizing drugs or words. So it's not marijuana legalization to rapid up stereotypes still prohibited drugs now. Is just getting weaker. Mutations will make it benign. Russian domestic politics blogs, Miranda Wolf 12. Russians remain hesitant to harm reduction in the opposition ground in Soviet history. Addicts were treated as criminals who were simply registered with the police. Russian criminal psychiatrists so close to the state supported and propagated these ideas as only treatment. Our colleges continue to oppose therapy. Russian opposed opportunities fully to profit off the Russian drug problem. The Russian church and pro-Russian legislators vocally opposed harm reduction. No one EC ever said evidence about changing status of nukes that already happened. Chang 14 pay. Putin will use nukes to protect Ukraine for only the generation. Nukes were only considered defensive only on Friday. Putin needs defensive offensive nature. The leaders spoke about renouncing the treaty between the U.S. and Russia. No war. 7 reasons. Fact 14. The U.S. is not going to get in shooting war. Russia's nuclear superpower for 46 years. America and Russia will never fought. Neither Obama nor Putin is crazy enough. Russia has a powerful army with enough firepower to inflict significant losses. Ukraine is closer to Russia. It's easier for the send troops and supplies. The U.S. military is tired. Murder there. That's was always an option.
Okay. The net benefit to the counterpoint.
Um,
I think every
all the
As
dissents.
it criminalizes marijuana, sure.
Yep.
So it doesn't solve the African advantage, so the impact terms are not net benefit.
I think it does solve the
So it doesn't solve the not net benefit. Key argument.
Not as a lot.
All people, right? That probably includes kids. Why?
No, it says all or most people.
Okay.
Right. So obviously not kids, but like you have to legalize sale, you have to legalize distribution. Cannabis
What is
exchanges
the
only legalize
regulatory? What is the
possession.
regulatory regime that legalized that's topical under your interpretation?
Like the climbing stuff, like any kind of like
Would
most.
stores have a monopoly so they can prohibit sales to anyone they want to? Why is that?
No, that's not necessarily true. Also, just like in general, legalize marijuana with a free market, legalize marijuana with bans on kids, like having kids do it. I think that is not
Okay,
an
what is
unreasonable
most
interpretation.
people?
Most people would be the majority of people in the United States.
Okay, prohibition counterplan. Obviously, there's been a prohibition for a long time that hasn't decreased use or set in a model for harm reduction. How does the HOPE program overcome that?
Right, so the HOPE program is different. The way HOPE works is that it has swift and certain sanctions. So if you use marijuana, then there is a sure punishment that you are sent to jail for like one night. No matter what
How does
your
that solve
cost.
the harm reduction model, which is about criminalizing marijuana use, criminalizing
Right.
opiates?
So there's a difference between criminalizing in the sense of mass incarceration, like sending you to jail for 10 years, versus the very short but swift and certain penalty, and that also opens the door for.
The Canada dissent, so this
Yeah.
Quebec secession impact is from 1999, first of all. There's obviously been massive swings in the Canadian economy between that given the 08 crisis,
Has there?
but the internal link card says that this would give him more confidence about winning a referendum. It says Quebec secession, that it's on the referendum, would kind of implement something.
Wait,
Is
what?
Quebec secession on the referendum in Canada?
Right, so
What
this,
is this?
I'm not sure what
The
you're
line
talking
right
about.
before that, this would give him more confidence about winning a referendum.
Right,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
they can bring up a
Quebec
referendum
is-
at any time
Yeah,
to
but-
secede. They're,
What do you?
the referendums have failed in the past. Yes, they
When
can.
is,
The reason
when
I
is an
posted
upcoming referendum for Quebec secession?
What?
When is an upcoming referendum for Quebec secession?
Our argument is that if the economy declines, there will be calls for another
So-
referendum.
If Canada's economy
Yeah.
declines at any point, people will just be like, well, fuck it.
We think that the link to legalizing marijuana is huge. The link card is awesome. It says it would cause mass layoffs. It would have a wider ripple effect. It would
Legalizing pot
devastate-
will have a negative impact. The underground economy helps drive Canada's tourism. Why does that mean Canada's economy would collapse?
So
Yeah.
one other important distinction is that if Quebec's, if the British Columbia part of Canada's economy, which is where most of their marijuana is taken from, that would create an economic disparity between.
I just like that. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Let's go back to the
That's
question
another-
of why do you think it would collapse Canada's economy?
the link card. Very good.
We'll take bro. Can you kick blanks again?
I don't know, Cody.
I don't think so. Okay, no. The impact turns are based off of instability, not rule, right? Instability. Okay. What is it called?
I'm good. 604 left.
You have extra papers?
Yeah, I mean, crap. But
I might not be. Do we have more?
Look in the tech tag.
here, I love drawing. I love drawing everything. Here's the 200. All about it.
And then wait till the next week.
Take off.
After we leave and
It's rude. Don't do that.
I knew it. Yeah.
Oh, now you're gonna leave. Now you're peeing out.
Yeah, talk. That's how it works.
You just don't want to see greatness. It's just. Russia, Morocco, T, counterplan. Yeah, I was a little worried about your ability to hear during the. Okay, all right. Russia, Morocco, T, counterplan, Pharma, Canada, Iran. We have 4 country names going now. There's a lot of that. Just humble weed legalization getting to all these places.
Say that one more time. Russia.
Russia, Morocco, T, counterplan, Pharma, Canada, Iran.
I need a book.
If I had like music going, it would be like Johnny Cash, just like a bunch of lyrics and shit. No. All right. Everybody ready? Perfect. Recommitting the drug war doesn't matter. Recovery evidence indicates how the United States diplomats are currently undermining by pushing prohibition. Elliott evidence indicates that the United States should be able to change the UN, that Russia would model the UN because that is what they can transfer their domestic policy to Trump's in, which causes them to shift to a health-based approach. That's also our ultimate the Gabbard evidence. Russian domestic politics will black as they listen to the UN over all of their domestic politics. Such Elliott evidence changing the news just puts them on a brink of disaster. This is just in response to the Ukraine. However, they need a reason and impetus to escalate that conflict. Yes, there would be a war. Eversand evidence indicates without all strong conventional forces they will rely on nuclear weapon first use. Morocco would advance Morocco would advance Morocco will legalize it at least within the context of exports. Qatar talked about the evidence indicates King Mohammed is asking for U.S. investment in the RIF, which he will gain do so through an important importation of marijuana. Yes, escalation to you and the United States of interest in the region because it is an important part of the Islamic world as well as providing security energy interests. That's our main evidence of causes escalation and causes escalation. Great powers, they say that instability is good. These terms already joke. They're testing evidence about status for the environment. They're testing evidence about status for development. Says such development, both political, social, economic, technological changes, Africa's ecosystem and their environments were very disrupted, and that what showed them here the entire impact argument is from this dude named Owosu, who says the potential article entitled "The Potential Role of African Botanic Gardens and Environmental Awareness Programs." It was from the early 2000s. Will Leslie Jensen wouldn't even cut or read these cards. Footnote: any biodiversity defense wouldn't spill over. B begins to renew in the 20 yard if they obey new terms and the 2 year one another. The EU turn is this loyal person says that the EU has a great stake of importance. That Africa has a great stake of importance for European security. It does not agree that the EU's policies need to be strengthened by African instability, nor does it say that those policies would be good or need evidence indicates they would intervene within the region, which obviously does not strengthen the region. Also, foreign policy is not necessary for the overall EU. The euro crisis, obviously, the key to Chinese regional influence evidence says that China provides African governments with generous large loans, allowing them to develop badly needed infrastructure. It also functions as a double turn with their environment turn because if China is writing them development loans, that hurts their environment. There's also zero reason why we would stop Chinese investment within the
the region, even if there is instability, that's the devil. It's all a matter of whether or not it would escalate to a war that is likely to draw on other countries. Oh yeah, their last argument is that their EU is important evidence from the former Prime Minister of Ireland. Obviously, a joke. The resiliency argument doesn't make any sense. We're talking about evidence indicates that the key thing is U.S. investment within the region necessary to stabilize King Mohammed's regime because the risk is getting increasing and radicalization. Now they do have power to stop Iran because Israel and Gulf leaders uniquely trust them. The impact to disease possible and eventually concludes affirmative footnote that card for later on debate. Our Melbourne evidence also postdates since indicates that increasing mutations are going to cause extinction. T. Legalization of process eliminating prohibitions. OES 13. Legalization of process eliminating legal prohibitions on production, distribution, and use of a controlled substance. Or Caucasian evidence says that production and use must be legal, which is what we do. We just don't legalize this. Legalize means you make lawful by judicial or legislative action. Business tissue rejuvenate. Legalized definition A. Lawful by judicial or legislative sanctions. CSEs are regulated legal market model rules in American 14 bubble. Regulation for that replaces prohibition. Legalized cannabis regulation to be just one of the blue region with multiple jurisdiction developing intervention to regulated market laws for cannabis include private cannabis, social clubs, affirmative flexibility. All or most people we do that. However, they just can't sell it, but they can still produce it, grow it, and use it. Functional limits, track decriminalization, alternative regulation, counterpoints, off limits, solution, no ground laws. We just don't legalize sales every other. Your counterplan applies. Reasonability is good enough. We don't make it impossible. Don't put aside community interpretation, cause a race of the bomb, moving affirmative predictability. Counterplan. Permanent counterplan. Proposing the United States was acted as the first waiver in order to build momentum, high tide, Century 3, and the U.S. continues to allow states to legalize marijuana, will lose fortune, repeat your percentage of classification. This will not be easy to question for direction to take over 100 countries that breach of the rules, rewriting federal laws necessary for the international models, cause and necessary to cause other countries to trust the United States guardian. 14. The until TC directed and such liberalization of the rest of the world, not securely without track policies begin to turn within the U.S. and the further field. So it is to be welcome to European integrated regulating cannabis trade, Colorado, and Washington license for some use of the federal drug. Which classes cannabis association from what is surrounding it was in the much of the some rules on the law possession of the earth and the of the contribution something with the rest of the cars and industry for rewriting the federal statute only don't say the less liberal future occupant of the White House to turn out the club. Hope fails duly. 11. Hope stretching criminal justice and reduce the number of others that can limited percentage of hope and Sanders like attitude law and enforcement like listed from the rest of whatever more some saying to produce your rest of the regard was spent me and power to make power money to research the house the defender shaking up the need to please to research the sharp population to property conservative limiting capacity thought of charge with the shipping war since to give it extra cases also proves it won't model. Other countries will model it while 13th the right rest under hundreds and some of the under practice and U.S. countries have hard beater to lots of hard levels of drug abuse legal regulations not to be entered person not see price of the drug use and defense as well the first time models legal regulation this will not under by the government marketing and social security and allow countries to learn permutation to the planet all combination of plans legalization of Latin American relations to keep it 14 although legally banned cannabis uses government finding agreement to match with the regulation leads like cannabis is the only way the legalization to contribute to easier relations with Mexico and neighbors on neighbors of the legalization lived in not needed record from U.S. policy in Latin America over the Washington government has trained to live in a relationship with the hemisphere concluded U.S. drug policies are not working in the system by the U.S. to legalize what the way for hemisphere rights to drug alternative strategies relations key to solve launching lists of existential threats shifter and Trump there are academic reasons for the U.S. and Latin America to pursue more of a security country with the federal protects the markets Latin America suppressing coverage to become control to the U.S. and the U.S. we gain more cooperation to gain by more cooperation with global matters as climate democracy and human rights and opportunity on not situation you say new shift to current affairs urgent attention attention no dive beyond no counter resolution infinite unpredictable number of counterplans of peripheral projected to practices additionalities voting issue strategy the negative will go for we ever undercover make it possible for us to say that with often taken use our opposite against this contribution the negative can have pre-rounder dispositionality pharma DA. No link, can't patent it, means no company gets involved in Fozio not doing government that has to be to research about limiting cost of one pharma companies assuming the cost of research to drugs essential so that is not compatible with companies of little and incentive to study and marijuana doesn't matter currently scope and to whether the issue represents matters and whether pharma industry is more giving about the industry represents the benefits of marijuana the profit things that the market have with property the cannabis to do certain things multiple law costs this industry collapse and well this by the difference of the industry patient content distributed essentially company does like committees and psychology and unfavorable to rate is about the rising development but the average is the access to $1 million to the pounds of the ratio many companies who not justify investing product private lives sorry but wrong is having contributed to other pharmaceutical companies are losing protection the market losing protection no impact to bioweapons Bueller 10 there Bueller 10 biological weapons have seriously capital use and stating that they need to be dispersed until about 2 for circle and 0% not set of pathogens having shady or dose level 90% of microorganisms attraction for the stage of the effects could be reduced for the prices on life community and temperature changes for tremendous with the organisms towards lethal organism it's difficult most of the organisms limited lifetime to levels can take we give up full effect pretty much on the amount of defense versus delaying marco suitable for inflicting casualties regards to the system towards sophistication even the defense versus these leaders are to make unfavorable neurological conditions. Canada disadvantage their Parkinson uniqueness. Evidence says that the Canadian downgrade is largely in line with the OECD's declining optimism and the global economy seems the decline of the global economy is other it's inevitable or not either that or other reasons for growth are inevitable. Wheat is obviously not good to their economy. They're neutral, and evidence says that it's about winning a referendum which occurred in 1999. Obviously, disproves geographic secessionism is not going to happen. St. Louis state violent secessionists and provinces over Canadians outside of government. So that's opposition government. They're not going to enter the only thing that secessionism. But meeting your prime minister is going to seek intervention. We're backers for legitimate political chaos. Their impact evidence is from 1994, but the returning post states obviously disproves the impact. It's also just as it would kill relations with Russia, but that would obviously not cause a war between Canada and Russia. Are you fucking kidding me? Obama. Case outweighs the terms of this out of all say Morocco see dissolve Israeli conflict in negotiation without the plan is Europol saturating the impact of Obama won't use peace marijuana all men of the Obama debate aggression of legalization not about to let that issue how to be the issue he was political capital of Obama believe the worst benefit of this and high honest priority list and make a change but he's not going to bother marijuana backlash I'm looking on unfortunately Obama positive which is change the federal laws that have marijuana and the fusion is increased and the pressure of Obama to deliver the consistent pressure to progressive public see a thing innovation but the special investigated that the investigation such as relation to where we're going and the border policy is their link is incoherent there's zero reason why it spill over to harm our renegotiation launch with the Congress multi and Overman Mode 1113 to protect country trial, the Obama Circle Committee, and brought a human criticism of the leaders of Obama's executive action on immigration law. As a first possible move, Mr. Richard claimed the right of President Trump to based on the facts that the most citizen is so warning him to make a bunch of the worries him and take principle some against such as Obama may tackle Keystone Congress of block Obama's will overwhelming by person for tower 1113 law makers would if it thinks you don't need administration to be able to do what a good deal is like George Bush is a good deal of expansion so all that zero degree to the president American Congress under the big to progress the word of the way to the shipping government rejected the administration and the administration of Congress of play role in post agreement extension that preserves the leverage Iranian politics plus the deal for he liberty and the domestic political obstacles are busy Rouhani and the Rouhani is over in rapid series compromises causes the British wage of political war the forces are sent for the logical refusal to aggress the demand of battling purpose of action differences within Iran's embrace of the country relation of the international community or as political states of the country created by the peace of players and some of the way the U.S. churches and the European was limits and concessions Iran could make well fueling paper to what the U.S. government can think so that you can develop the event of actions of race issues over the issue that did not and full disagreement market disagreement winners win blah blah blah. Baker 1113. Obama right voters top of politically chiefly about the land that's under Obama places also mitigation some change of the interaction and producing much Obama's are chooser and so the one is one of the the lower security liberator Obama is making but the opposition shop in the from it's making produce Obama taking action public but I like it should they does they change it up mark that change it I marked that at the deal card. Where did I mark that?
Deal card?
Yeah, did I mark it at
I think I didn't.
dismantling? Yeah, hey Sean.
Yeah.
I marked that deal card. Where did I mark it? Was it the second to last one? Dismantling key parts of the nuclear program. Does that sound about right? Or
I don't remember, right?
I'll ask them.
Stop at 9:10.
Yeah. And just before we start cross-ex, I marked that second to last card on politics. Do you remember where? I think it was at dismantling key parts of the nuclear program, but I'm not entirely sure.
Was that the one after you said winners win?
This was the one right before.
Right before, okay, yeah. So this was under deal fail.
Yeah, 2AC ATI Randier. Yeah, there's a separate 2AC deal fails header because I'm cocky and I think I can read the white cards. But
Okay, I don't know where you marked it. You know.
I think it's key parts of the nuclear program, but
Let me.
I'll let the crunk be the final decision on this one. Okay.
All right, if you think you got there, then that's
Okay. Cool.
fine.
All right.
Okay. So the Russia advantage, you say that Russia listens to the UN, that's what's going to change their policy. I haven't really noticed Russia listening to the UN on things like foreign policy crises like Syria and Ukraine. What piece of evidence in the 1AC do you think says that Russia listens to the UN?
Elliot.
Okay. What?
Yep. I just pulled up the 1AC.
But how does so
government
obviously-
official. Do you want me to go ahead? Government officials regularly claim that Russia has adopted such an approach in order to meet the UN Convention's drug eradication goals.
They claim that, right? But we've read evidence about domestic politics. How does that?
Minister of Interior Affairs emphasized that total prohibition of illicit drug use is not the government's own initiative, but rather strict adherence to the UN Drug Convention.
Sure. So
it does cite their own
they
internal
blame
politics.
it. So they blame it on the UN Drug Convention. Where does that say that? Where does that card come close to saying that if the UN policy would change, then Russia would change their
Are you
policy.
serious? International treaties are
I
an
am
integral part of
serious.
its
This
legal
is
system.
not
International
true.
treaties supersede national legislation, which means if we lead to a change in
Yeah,
the treaty,
they're
which you've
saying
conceded.
that doesn't mean that they actually will change their policy. So that's fine.
Oh my God, it's like citing people within the government.
Yeah,
You're just
you
like
read evidence
paranoid,
to the
like, oh
contrary.
no, they're just
No,
like
that's
spinning
fine.
that.
Okay, the counterpoint doesn't have an amendment claim. I guess what is the purpose of this argument?
Oh, which one?
The first argument, you said something about the U.S. needing to like amendments failing. I guess.
Oh yeah, no. So like this card both answers the proposed amendment counterplan and this counterplan. So you say that you're like the United States will encourage other countries to do things. The High Times evidence and the Reuters evidence both say that unless those changes are codified within U.S. domestic law, that other countries won't trust us and won't follow on. So even if we prompt them to do something, they don't trust us right now.
Fair
So the
enough.
only way to do so is end the hypocritical.
Fair enough. Your pharma link card. So the first card you read says that companies can't patent it. I guess I don't understand how this answers our link argument, which is precisely that it would hurt pharma profits. So why
because
does
they
it
can't patent it, they won't pay attention to
So-
it. Legalization of marijuana is not going to affect any pharmaceutical company priorities.
Okay.
They will continue doing what they're doing.
Okay, so your argument is just like they won't pay attention to marijuana.
Status
it's
quo
not
will roll on
patented.
through. Yeah,
Gotcha.
they
And
don't
then
care.
your Karlofsky evidence is just they don't see a benefit in marijuana. Your card just says though that they don't see any benefit in marijuana. They don't think it will make them a profit.
Which is-
Where does that indicate that they won't see it as a threat?
Even if the pharmaceutical company sees it as a threat, why does that collapse the pharmaceutical industry?
Oh, we'll talk about
What's the
that.
like?
That's
What's the
fine.
effect? Are they gonna like?
Let's politics. Why is the deal gonna fail now?
Why does the deal fail? The Farhi evidence talks about how the like differing domestic environments that the United States and Iran are situated in. So the United States is saying like, no, we need to be a hard ass, we need to engage in hardline policies. Iran is Rouhani is faced with domestic opposition saying that Rouhani is too nice to this evil West. So when the United States ups that rhetoric, it causes Rouhani to be weaker in the face of his own domestic opposition, which means that they're less likely to get a deal to follow through.
Cool. Thanks.
Cool.
What's up?
Stop that. That's 4:45.
What did you say it was?
We also just write.
Yeah, I think that'd be easier. I also had it on a sheet of paper here. But
I think we did like 604 left.
So far, yeah, and we had 4 something.
445.
Awesome. I'm gonna grab water. Is that okay? Where is the water?
It's in the elevator, not elevator,
It's over.
stairs.
Okay.
If you walk all the, like, to the stairs in the middle, you have to go down those stairs, then downstairs.
yeah.
And then,
For water?
yeah.
No, you can go out in the middle.
Never mind,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, well. Okay.
Go on the road. Hey, Logan.
Alright. I was just talking about leaving this room, and just
Did you fall?
Yeah, there's.
We couldn't call you, like, you just fall.
I
Where would you go?
Where would
Where would you go? Get dinner.
I would go to the. I go to Butters, yeah, I definitely go to Butters.
And Drake? You want to evaluate this debate?
Oh, I get buffalo chips, and then after the day was over, I like G-chat you my decision, and then after I G-chat you my decision,
Nicholas, you know how this turned out.
No, we can just join you at
and then we can talk about it, and then I can have a
Yeah, let's demand a tie. We'll go to Butters, get some slot chips, you know. Knock back is good.
It wouldn't.
I know it's one way, but
I'm
like,
also quite capable of just doing it.
on Avier, you think you stop?
What?
I know Logan would.
I mean, if I run to the bathroom while Miranda's pulling stuff up.
Jason already judged the debate.
That microphone actually picks up noise much farther.
I close the door.
I am not liable for the information that high school students gain about my recreational activity.
Like how old are you?
21. Yeah.
When's birthday?
Whatever, we all know that the high schoolers are watching this, they're watching the wrong round.
They are watching. Yeah, what are you doing?
What's the other one?
MSU, CZ, and
MCCZ, I thought it was being Kentucky GD.
maybe Georgia last round. MSU, CZ versus Kentucky. That's right.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so.
That's a little intense.
There are a lot of these.
Oh my god. I know, right? Slow.
It's not my fault.
Where's Cody? Cody,
When I greeted you in our normal fashion earlier, Wade Yale seemed a little disgusted. But I did want to point out though that at the Kentucky tournament, you greeted me in that exact same fashion, including your mom.
My mom was at the Kentucky, right? Doing a GSU.
Whenever
I went up in Tucker, and I did one of the, I did it. Yeah, I did it to him.
Gotta send
How did you see that?
it. Yeah, I just send it. Forgot to hit send.
Feel you.
He didn't pick up on it. He didn't pick up on it.
Are you sure you sent it?
But where are we ever gonna do?
That's a problem then.
Check again. It says it's been sent. Can you check? Okay.
Good user. What's the order?
I guess.
You can go ahead.
It's Counterplan Canada, Morocco, Goal Coalition. Ready?
Yeah.
Kissing permutation not going for Latin America and relations high right now. Hojin since and Hegel the Colombian Chile additionally the ties the reform diplomatic relations continuing to support Colombia's development is significant partner Chile and the U.S. celebrated the China, the Chile FTA, the U.S. has eager to expand relations with Chile by deepening collaboration, security, peace building. Hegel expressed admiration for military appointing U.S. partner Hegel, but trusting U.S. commitment to partnership, Africa's relations, and April 14 push to legalize for animal competence. America's close allies, Colombia, Nicaragua are confused about Segal's legalization. Since legal when disbelief about legalization, leaders want to see shoulder to shoulder and shoulder to shoulder drug trade. The app is insufficient. Their hard is inconclusive. They got no evidence that you need that relations are going to decline right now. Relations are high and resilient. While other continuous engagement more pervasive that after trade investment also during advantages of U.S. relations, the hundreds of thousands of tourists travel Latin America, Foreign and Johnson on U.S. and U.S. universities increase partnership. One should not underestimate the resiliency of U.S. soft power, the region, national reputation, popular culture values, institutions, security, use influence relations. Also, but taking out the other teams, small partners, combat news by Washington, Warren, Iraq, British Bush from engaging with the region. Obama came to Latin America, the offer and little to ask for. They're very few items need to do that. And generate support. Nick Piat is key to ground conditionality as a good there to produce arbitrary causes. As arbitrary as no negative resolution is key to negative flex extra plan advantage of this topic like legalization now and nearly all key to breath test policy multiple angles. Really important legal topic because we need to discuss different mechanisms and I want to keep strategic thinking, pushing hard makes me better. Reasonability, their argument, reasonability if they win that right. That takes it out. Persecution check, excuse or inevitable. All arguments spill over into time investments. Time investments are inevitable. Canada is adding impact. Outweighs Quebec's decision causes miscalculation. Russian aggression comes into China-Russia nuclear war and also kills U.S.-Russia relations. That's about U.S.-Russia relations. Turn everything CFR 6. The president's supposed to make it believe the interest of the U.S. by engaging with Russia. U.S. cooperation can handle terrorism, political climate change, diseases, a problem more manifold U.S.-Russia side could relate to the most one of the most promising international realities in the absence of rivalries amongst river powers. They have no evidence to answer this. The global economy is not declining right now, so its projection was reduced, but it has not gone down. That is great because Canada's economy is going to collapse if they legalize the yes, because secession is possible. That's unique. No secession now is unique. It's for us. There's that now doesn't assume a massive hit to the Canadian economy. That's new. And Scotland energized the movement. Quebec won't succeed now, but leaders are looking for a new way to solve the project. Launching 14 Scotland's campaign. Naturally, the mention Quebec has already caused the movement to rebound. Its convenience for Quebec to get a narrow loss would feel like victory. Some of most independents, of course, look for a new way of revamping its project and province. It's gaining steam. Also 13 Quebec within 1% of the separating 95 separates still exist. There are 24 presidential elections. The Quebec separates is not popular. We're changing really fast. Something's really happening. Also, people inside it, like educated youth, people to journalists, all ideas becoming fashionable. Then legal pot does crush the Canadian economy. There's a huge impact, causes a ripple effect, devastating real estate, employment, retail, and tourism. It's key to build resiliency to shocks and solve from a transition from resource into that pot exports build resiliency, transition away from second resource industries. Canada developed a highly profitable marijuana industry, completely dependent on use market. 90% of export illegal industry in the U.S. would definitely marijuana is Canada's largest ag product. The marijuana production so its communities larger economic phenomenon elevated to decline. Also made a transition to market happen to do as well to generate marijuana all over Canada. Their comparable situation can let's say within forward of marijuana and the employment vacuum by research-based industries, academics, green content, and legalization be devastating the economy, health and abilities over remarkable the Africa. This point smoke not necessarily academics say marijuana production generates 4 billion BC alone due to heavy demand from South Dakota. Growth is key to solve secession. The fear that Quebec will be hurt economically by seceding dominates concerns, but economic decline reverses as Mitchell in the 90s proved a young two condition of future economic process to process their results. The evidence of analysis in Quebec, the always flexible society would for better than they would and sort of the Canadian Federation. Growth explains all causes. Young two persons to economic justice for the influence of evaluation of economic cost of benefits that revolve into a national union, economic system, legal to the ethnic relations, cultural factors, performance, and demands. We went out the impact evidence is good. There is a risk by China, Russian miscalculation, and war in Quebec restores no concession, restores no right bomb, and important independent Quebec was used to complicate or dismantling real Canada would the cost of skill this rank Canada's operational effectiveness ability to meet its obligation of very more with the public president Canada community is supporting North American destruction with an debt crisis, aversion abuse, and military vision, feeding the Soviet Canada by reducing further North commitment. It solves accidental nuclear wars, small and recovery, avoids accidental wars, ability, warning, and Texas, and legal must have confidence in the institution, also to warn attack the North Center of the U.S., no warning in Texas was, no warning to the Cold War Institute, just to bar the valid U.S. warning system for a warning system for surprise attack. Now, case Morocco, they're not going to legalize. Our evidence is conclusive. Their evidence quotes leaders who are trying, who are taking money for the election. There's no chance that they are going to have, even if they do, that destabilizes Morocco because price of class goes over to full HC 10 7 legalization we have almost into low price of competition for all these states with vast secret latest tech legalization happened. We would never compete. The price wouldn't be any different than the shares we had made. Nothing that were not received little investment to the history of balance beliefs on the industrial marijuana for broken down the oppressing economy. It's firmly anchored firmly anchored in marijuana. There's no escalation. It's empirically not no great powers enough interest, or we're not going to go for any of the impact turns, but the EU and China next prove that there is going to be great power cooperation because they want to invest to solve the stability. So African stability solve itself, no escalation, obviously solve the prospects of major interstate conflict in Africa. Looking daily weapons, most distant view African defense and direct war machines always located offshore roads, more than Africa, oil and gas are located closer to the US, making security less and the less expensive. No one has interest for Iraq. Hey, no representation in Africa, not planning threatening Russia and China will make this around the East, but all know while the metals say they do not the same with Africa. No one has this is a nobody's factor in African wars are probably proxies and with few and if YouTubers, their internal link is silly. Why does Morocco destabilize the rest of Africa? It's also empirically denied by the last 50 years. Morocco relations are resilient to arms sales, democratic and economic reforms, and CIA, FBI cooperation. All take it out. That doesn't solve Iran. Their own evidence says it is not powerful. It doesn't make sense. Why would Morocco horse trade for pod? The Abdullah regime, or not Abdullah, the regime is irrelevant to Iraq. No one cares about their evidence. But I-13, there's some flimsy U.S. Morocco relations that just didn't fortune Clinton and Martin shaking this year after Obama mentioned the back proposal for the UAP scheme. Mission Western Sahara, all cause where Obama neglects them. So Bill 13 was when regional crisis can be given limited to the U.S. makers of stable Morocco. How the glance such a difference can come at Emory Robin has seen the elevation of officials believes that professional track records in the hard and Western Sahara issues include Rice and Kerry departure of Clinton and Western Sahara thumbs Mahdi 13. There's been some solidified in U.S. Mexico the U.S. Morocco relationships since the departure of Clinton. The Morocco is shaken after the Obama administration back proposal for the UN peacekeeping mission and peacekeeping in Western Sahara. Burnout checks no impact disease virus kills its host faster. Isn't passed on and isn't passed on. You can't footnote evidence. That's cheating. Risk is decreasing. It's high Ridley 12. IGP is only new tropical Mexico pandemic. This year's man cow. Predictions from terrifying no troubles S. Supports and 166 stars. Like people in 774 bird flu's roughly 200 new bill pandemics are less likely now. More migration that makes cities makes the opportunity virus to jump while the human species decline water and water infections are declining. Living centers improved infection of organ believe amount of the so they're very concerned of legal bicycles global medical science devise a cure is devise a cure is getting better. No Israel strike ever. See man 12 guys see Dallas so the US will try to strike anytime soon. They elected female actually gets around as you be a board decision can't be taken or usually perspective they can be used to ensuring that they think that is that in his attack is intimate but the ultimate prevent is Russian pressure on Iran. But I believe Israel's pressure is helping again. Israel wants to keep the world's focus on Iran destruction peace process won't escalate according to the US will try to build a coalition to call for voting the US China Russia not full allies of Iran. They've been less than amicable. Russia and China would almost really protest war. It's unlikely they would be retaliating or people economically militarily diplomatic protests but diplomatic protests but that is all. Now global prohibition. Pot is insufficient. It can be revamped at any time. There's no reason why it is going to spill over to every other drug or why Russia is going to be able to care. Legalization doesn't end the overall prohibitive approach or cause harm reduction. Deadline 19 Americans will turn legalization to cannabis, but eliminating that is good. But the nation else the world has been a disaster. This and then the cannabis and trafficking do very little. Cocaine is a culprit. Legalization is not a person not here nor Latin America. Harm reduction means reduction of violence and limited legalization is politically feasible and simply not help. No spillover. Gomez 14 year policy means involved. There are a number of obstacles. There is a consistent warrant versus field disagreements and how to control supply with law enforcement look like and what health public health strategies political leadership for performance were hesitant. Latin American countries are against progressive drug policies concerns remain on the international stage. How open the U.S. will be for promoting reform given historical agreement blockers to challenge drug convictions. Russia is pushing for harsher counter narcotics. Russia's on comprehensive prohibition of new powerful countries in East Africa and Asia. PCO tolerance international political conflicts would be very difficult, not impossible to essentially fly. The U.S. convictions. Russia is not going to model. Our evidence is conclusive. There's massive religious, political, and economic opposition to legalization. Their evidence says that the UN could be used, that the UN is used as one excuse for Russia to not do it. It does not say it overcomes the other cultural barriers Russia has. Right now, AIDS is decreasing. Kellen 14. New infections about to escalate. HIV decreasing, making it possible to control the epidemic. And the number of people with HIV less than 35 million. HIV in every region. AIDS deaths at home by 35. Since 2005, never states are agreed to targeting HIV treatment down to 50 million by 2015. Status quo solves HIV down at Emory 14 global AIDS decline. HIV deaths accelerated since 2000. And MPTs right now were developed in South Africa. 2015 published in the Lancet. The systematic analysis was connected by an international consortium of researchers globally. HIV/AIDS will kill fewer than the past and declines. Death accelerated since 2000. Their ever thought evidence is the threshold for nuclear war is Russia changing its alert status. They already did that already. That should trigger the impact. Makes it empirically denied. There is no U.S. Russia war. There's massive barriers. There's no ground forces. Putin can go on no war. 5 reasons of March 2014. If cities Europe responded to apocalyptic claims, Russia can't start any other war. One of the world will stand the cold winter escalated. Also nuclear war. Like the economic stations of war. The U.S. stations began to told declining Russia kind of puts Putin in a form position which war Putin's actions more out of fear than sink. Russia's population is not very high. Russia will face united world powers. Something I want to say. Russian Ukraine is one thing. Russia has to take for the action. Skin with riding nations. Korea have symbolic meaning, but it isn't worth risking the not effective events. The chances of this confrontation escalating to a greater war are slim. I'm going to read another pot doesn't solve card. Actually, I read all of those. That's good.
So let's talk about burnout for a little bit. This is talking about diseases that exist and have existed. What about ones that could mutate in the future?
This is a structural question that no disease can make. Mutations don't make sense because
What
by
if
the
it's like
time for it
genetically
tries to kill
engineered?
everyone,
So,
it
like,
doesn't
what if
happen.
it's like genetically engineered to bounce from like species to species?
Like if it's genetically engineered, bioterror can cause extinction, but naturally occurring diseases are different because the diseases evolve in ways so they do not do that, because that kills off the disease.
They evolve
faster
in
than
ways
it
that
can
do not do that because that kills off.
Yes, the disease will die off.
Let's talk about
bioterror
Quebec
can
PA of all
go
glorious
around that.
things. So Canadian growth key to solve Quebec secession. Your neuter line evidence from 1999 says that many Quebec voters may worry that their province will suffer economically if it separates. It seems to indicate that they don't want to separate because they're worried about the economy. The reverse of your internal link, which is the economy will cause them to want to separate. What card do you have that says they will vote on a referendum to secede, which is necessary for them to secede?
Are you asking why the economy is key or the referendum stuff? 'Cause the referendum stuff I've got. Okay, referendum. First, the Blatchford evidence says that the Scottish. Yes, this is the Tune C one, that the Scottish independents set a model, and Quebecers are looking for something to campaign on to allow them
The
to
fractured Quebec movement is searching for ways to rebound after major electoral defeats in recent years. Why does that say that if the economy were to decline?
This card is a quote
says-
from Laporte. It says that it can be an inspiration for Quebec, says Laporte, who is the head of the Quebec secession movement. What evidence do you have that says Quebec is actually seceding?
It says surveys have shown most oppose independence, but they're looking for a new way of selling it. The balsam
new way of
evidence
selling
says that
it.
it's
Why-
gaining
why
steam and
exactly?
becoming more
So-
probable.
But your neuter line evidence goes against you, and it says that they worry seceding will hurt the economy. Let's talk about the link debate a little bit. Your Sen evidence, which is from Lena Sen, a staff writer from the Leader Post, who's citing Plecus, which has zero qualifications whatsoever, says that legalizing pot will have a negative impact on BC, British Columbia. Why exactly would that spill over to harm?
Well, it also says it has a ripple effect to the housing and lumber sectors, and our
a
Haddo
ripple
and
effect
Quan
with retail
evidence.
and restaurant industry is taking a hit. Why exactly
True.
is that going to cause Quebec's economy to collapse, or the perception that they need to secede?
Because it affects the broader Canadian economy. The Haddo evidence says it builds resiliency and it spills over. The Quan evidence cites academics who say that
What
although this
academics?
seems silly, it's wrong. It says
Okay, so your argument that it will kill relations, cause a nuclear war, also from, well, actually no, Lamont is not the same thing as before. Growth key, your Young 2 evidence says that considerations of future economic prospects can appeal to citizens of the weaker provinces.
they
Why
think if they can
exactly-
improve their growth by leaving, they'll do it.
Where does it say that anybody thinks they can improve their growth by leaving the Canadian Union or Federation, whatever it is?
That's the one in C. Newsland evidence and
Which
the
I
Young
just
evidence.
read that contradicted
Yeah,
you, that says
no,
they
that's-
think
that's the
secession
opposite.
will hurt the economy.
Yeah, which is why they're
Quebec
not
voters may
seceding,
worry
because
that
they
their
think it'll be
province will
worse.
suffer economically if it separates. Where does this make
If
you
there
this
is,
argument?
if that's uniqueness
you're
for
like
us, if
toast.
it does
Like,
get
you
rid
can't
of
go
it,
for
then
this.
they'll change that.
Okay, the order is politics, the pharma DA, and tea.
Politics, pharma, tea.
Hey, John.
You hand me my water bottle, right?
Everyone have it?
Yes.
All right. We'll get can see that the Iran deal will fail because of internal Iranian disputes. The affirmative cannot solve this because their relations currently about solving things like Israel or other actors, but does not think Iraq has any influence whatsoever with the Iranian government, which means that neither their linkers on politics in their office nor their solved fixes to the app. Now, the farmer just said, you have messed this up. You read answers to link terms of the farmer just said, not answers to our links, means you are way behind this debate that this had always turns the case A is magnitude mutually construction checks nuclear war with passengers are self-replicating. There's no checks. The biosphere attack causes extinction and its B is probability. It is increasing now due to synthetic biology. Means it's only becoming more likely in the future. That's the same variable. It also turns the app. The plan takes away key money and flexibility that's used by the pharma industry to combat Ebola. Keen 913, the recent development of Ebola vaccines proven to be challenging. Experimental life-saving drugs are produced in statistical studies. The WHO announced that two possible vaccines will be available early and six months in markedly rapid plays of drug testing. The urgent action sets by the Ebola crisis with the need for collective, efficient, and modernized pharmaceutical industries and equipped to devote additional research to the research and development of pharmaceuticals and access to patients are especially essential. That causes massive African instability. The African News 930 new report predicts Africa will reach 1.4 million by February. New Ebola not contains stability hangs in the belt for some African nations. Like Liberia would slip back into the Civil War. Trading here, the Leon the African results in shrinking down societies in the region. The spread of the Ebola virus has the potential for a massive domino effect. Mark that domino effect. Now the uniqueness debate. Your car or the I'm actually gonna do the drop down the uniqueness debate first, and then I'm gonna go back up to the links. Your uniqueness card is from 2012. Oops, that's not a very good card. Here's evidence that postdates it from 2 months ago. Pharma innovation is increasing now. The industry is thriving. Comes in Reuters 980. World's leading source releases pharmaceutical trends. Positive trends across the pharmaceutical let's include all-time high in pharmaceutical sales and an increase in drugs completing clinical trials. The content industry production decline in R&D productivity contains essential things finding real value. Strategic insight pharmaceutical sales are the highest ever. Pharma increase rates of successful drugs. The industry is improving its ability to fail. Fast fail cheapest reasonable. Assuring to see positive development and encouraging future are one and see evidence. Jackson evidence as well as internal link evidence indicates that pharma companies are funding about 6 firms now, but having resisting profits is key. Otherwise, they will switch their funding away from biotech firms. You can see the internal link in. Here's where you have evidence. Things like the patent clip for exaggerated use. 13 with the patent clip for every business over with the drug companies, the physical of the country, investors written back to the pharmaceutical sector, and forces not. How long ago the patent clip appear, which a slew of lucrative drug patents would describe driving multinational pharmaceutical companies such the big pharma has recovered very nicely. Now go back to the link debate. You did not answer the link. These cards are answers to the link turn. A link argument is that it causes people to use marijuana instead of pills that the pharmaceutical company can sell to do things like painkillers, which a huge chunk of their profits because of these smokables you planted. You take the huge dent of the pharma industry. Evidence indicates your perception argument. You made the crossing and says that they view it as a threat. All your cards say it's not. They say don't think it's an opportunity, but they do think it's a threat. Here's more evidence. It severely damages them. That's in 12. If a marijuana legalization, what they drug industry would suffer greatly. Pharmacy institutes a significant portion of business. Marijuana is a powerful medicine. I don't need to read more link cards here because you dropped it. Now, bioterror defense. You're wrong. Synthetic biology makes bioterror natural creates means and motive rose. 14 synthetic biology. Bioengineering as accessible, non-state actors should be aware applications become more affordable. It includes a biotech monster that has been changing with the institute of synthetic biology coupled with the ease of info sharing and rapidly use self-study biology movement tends to only more tests will deadly ones will definitely increase the let's keep it changing past the cost expertise is become less accurate, the low cost and skillfully reduced necessary expertise may change have non-state actors view bioweapons that respond rapidly to synthetic biology be a game changer by pertaining bioweapons and lower is likely to continue to be lower successful type of potent biological weapon where no pharmaceutical invention might exist will be deadly and the impact such attack will reverberate around the globe because biological weapons are not bound by international borders also turns your Russian advances harm reduction is impossible in a world where there are effective drugs to combat things like the harm of AIDS. Now, topic.
Can you read the CBO perception card?
Yeah. Perception says internally CBO6, the drug development choices that tends to help you pick up the base of their expectation of the future revenue companies expected to learn less from future drug sales. They would also percentage strategy to lower their R&D spend. Now, topicality. You are not on standard interpretation process. Legalization includes a legalization of production, distribution, sale, and possession. You only legalize you do not legalize sale, which means that you violate. You conceded that you do not mean your counter interpretation explodes your counter interpretation explodes limits. The process of elimination will include literally every step in that, which include things like decriminalization, would include things like reducing penalties, would include things like rescheduling marijuana. There's a litany of acts under the process of legalization that are not topical now. It also justifies any high form of decriminalization. Now, the form of decriminalization such as the Netherlands, with your underlying part of your rules evidence indicates it would also be topical under your interpretation. Now, the rules evidence says that it is a regulated system, but does not say that is a legalization. It includes Netherlands under this interpretation, which is not legalized. Hawkins and all told us marijuana legalization. There are many ways to liberalize full legalization. Use and sale of small quantities could be allowed, but production and wholesale distribution is still forbidden. That's the Netherlands. Production, sale, and use could be for only medical or restricted to non-commercial channels with users growing their own or forming cooperatives. Here's more evidence. They are distinct from legalization. Talking drugs. There are 13 questions about ways to facilitate the production and consumption of cannabis. Suggestions range from the full legalization of cannabis to cannabis social clubs, which first appeared in Spain in 2000. protocol existing within drug policy. You should prefer our interpretation because it is the consensus of the drug literature. It is key to predictability because it's how people guide their research strategies. This is clearly decriminalization, which means it should be negative ground. We were not able to read the decrim capital in this debate because you could have heard you both. Also, you should note their athletics is not saying the word legalized, and if I win that cannabis social clubs are not a form of legalization that you do not meet, they say most people include kids. No, it doesn't. That was cross exegesis. That's not the majority of people in the United States. They're helpful in this. Do not check that. That was about they sealed it in decrim capital. It's hard for me the negative on this topic because there's no dissent. Yes, there is ground loss. Cannabis exchanges. You have, you also advance like the research burden, which means that we are not able to pair even if there won't be ground. Reasonability is arbitrary and self-serving. It causes judge intervention, counter-interpretation. Community intervention is the only logical way to evaluate a T debate. Is the only logical way to evaluate a T debate. Topicality is a voter for parents, education, and jurisdiction. They are just not topical. I don't even need to spend that much time on this. They've messed this up.
It took time, and then there was remaining time.
Yeah, you had 520 something?
4:45 on the board.
That's for us.
I'm just kidding.
He's right for that.
I think you had 525.
525. All right, let it ride. Perfect.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Three or four left.
The order is the Morocco advantage, the Russia advantage, T, the Canada DA, the counter plan, then the Pharma DA. I'm reading the back line.
Morocco. What's the order again?
Morocco, Russia, T. Canada, Canada plan, Pharma. We're into the rebuttals now. fun. No new music. What happened to values?
I love it.
Come on.
I feel like they're playing during prep time.
That's even worse.
I've like always really wanted to play like a really loud obnoxious pump up song that goes through my 2AR and prep, but I feel like most bitches would just hate me.
I would. I should put on my headphones during one during the 2NC. Yeah, just put on my headphones.
That's not my stuff.
Maybe you need to use.
It's like, I don't know, good rap, just to get these out.
They play the same Taylor Swift song on repeat
Which
for
one?
like 45 minutes.
Which one?
On like 8 and 9.
No, which Taylor Swift song?
No,
Take it off.
it wasn't that. It was going on.
Damn it.
Was it from the rock? Can you even tell me? You're useless.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's smart for not knowing.
What are you talking about? Your album is. It's not as good as Ariana Grande's album, but
They is the fact that everyone's playing Taylor Swift after she just boycotted Spotify like that is
Yeah, that was bad.
I don't know.
Spotify was ripping her off though, from what I understand.
I know.
Bullshit.
I
Are
don't
you like
know.
a Spotify shareholder or something? I woke up.
Do you know how much I listen on? Do you know how much music I listen to on Spotify? I like very well. What you agree?
Totally worth it.
Yeah, I had a free coupon that Neil got me for 3 months, and that was really nice. And then I went back, and it's just
What, like it's like $10 a month.
If you switch
So worth it. If you switch, that's like just one album on iTunes.
I thought it was
if you switch to T-Mobile, all your stream charges.
oh, the worst part is the worst part is the offer that.
Oh, I need T-Mobile. Actually, not really.
No,
I
no one has ever said that.
No contract.
I have a bunch of data for AT&T, so this has never been a problem.
Pay your severance.
I hope I get a number.
Apologies to my school.
Good. Anyway, you missed some great Galloway last round. They came to give the 20-minute warning. It was like, all right, I'll set a timer. Then someone came in with the timer said 7. Doing it.
Okay.
Yeah. So everyone got it. Morocco, Russia, tea. Cool. For all the ladies.
Hi, Tiffany. I love you did that. I just got a chat one right.
All right. Everything good?
Never mind. Sorry. Well, that's embarrassing.
Hey Tiffany, don't do that.
Stop
I see the
it.
kicker.
Stop it.
All right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go for it.
Morocco legalization doesn't matter because it's all about exports. The plan results, the export internal links results, prices. The one you see evidence is it would be a good fair price because good hashish comes from America, comes from Morocco. The escalator escalation, EU intervenes, which causes a unique escalation because of radicalism. The internal link is about Morocco because of the right there because of the Moroccan regime uniquely inspires individuals to be more escalatory extremism. It's a unique reason that the regime stability exists in the South Coast means only plan controls and interlinks clubs are not going to go for their disease arguments, which means I can concede majority of the arguments also takes on the farmer terminal impact because it's about the mutation that's resolved via because the disease don't spread fast enough where they kill the population of this is their terminal impact defense. I'm not going to go for the Israel strike impacting the Russia and Venus are wild evidence in the case that we can transfer the global prohibition on drugs in the South because of the experimentation on regulatory regime. The plan resulted in U.S. diplomatic leverage over the 2016 union gas, which is uniquely necessary because the Latin American countries are already on board. The only way to convince Russia to change their U.S. policy, the UN policy is what guides Russia's national policy. We have evidence about that. It's our alien evidence, a fundamental basis for their policy in the South countries. The plan is able to result that aims to be increasing right now is not about Russia. Our evidence indicates it spills over to the Russian military, which uniquely decimates their command and control because they've historically relied on large military to nuclear weapons in turn. The disadvantage is obvious because miscalculated nuclear wars. The only likelihood of possibility relations will result in the internal link. Either there are other pieces of impact evidence from a columnist, not qualified to talk about with the Russian relation would happen to start evidence from the peer-reviewed reports, topicality, functional limits, determine the way that you should evaluate this round because they get things like the contemplate alternative regulation, they should be ready for. There is no limits. Terminal impact discussed with the water hours means you should have skeptical voting on certain reasonability unless predictive and impossible. You should not vote negative because the concentration at the bottom find the most limited interpretation. Both the plan removes marijuana from the CSA and also results in like regulation that contain the OAS evidence, which is the interpretation from the Organization of American States, which is prefer over the legal definitions that they've contrived. Our evidence indicates that it's a process of eliminating legal prohibition, which is the same thing as decriminalization. They've attested that interpretation or evidence also uses contextual methods of defining the CSE as the process of legalization. Legalization means regulation, which results their internal link. They also add more ground. Background is more important than negative ground than negative predictability because of the scale nature of this topic. And now the Canada disadvantage grew up back relations don't have any unique way to resolve war with Russia because of demographic decline means only the affirmative can turn the DA before the DA can turn the case. The DA can turn the case positive. No, it's not the internal link to growth. This has an effect on the Canadian market, but it does not mean that the Canadian growth that is occurring in the status quo will completely collapse because they don't have fucking marijuana. They don't control the internal links of relations. And NORAD impact from 1994 and said that it could complicate NORAD. It does not mean they would collapse into a complete internal link. It's about miscalculation because that can only happen as a result of the status quo when the affirmative not happening. There's no internal link to actual separation. Why the fuck would Quebec separate from Canada because the growth is slow? They would actually probably be more attached. It was made clear in the cross of their place for evidence indicates the secessionist movements have been defeated in the status quo. There's no way they can go for this disadvantage anyway. Now it'll be counterplan. Latin American relations, only the counterplan is able to resolve their evidence about Colombia and Chile. Only the plan solve the internal link because Mexico and other countries are backwashing their link turn argument is about hypocrisy over Washington and Washington and Colorado. The plan resolves that it changes the global prohibition regime that can see the Latin American lawmakers are looking for U.S. policies in the status quo shift. Their evidence indicates the results of multiplicity of now multilateral attacks like warming, proliferation, which turns both of the disadvantages. Only cooperation resolves the terminal impact of the pharmaceutical industry. The plan resolves the vital internal link because legalization looks like we're taking care of the other markets and not just caring about ourselves. Now the pharma DA.
Propose anything about Bush not proposing anything?
Yeah, their no proposal argument is about Bush, not about Obama, or evidence of very specific pharma. Can't turn or Africa impact Ebola is contained via the disease cooperation that occurs in Central. The plan still accesses that internal link. They can't turn Russia. AIDS cocktail already exists, which means that no new pharma inhibition is necessary. The link argument is incoherent. Their unique argument, which we will concede, says that pharma is making trillions of dollars a year. There's no reason the marijuana ban cannot happen. By the way, according to their default evidence, because of a large cost of researching and lack of unknown therapeutical benefits, will concede their Thompson and Reuters evidence and their Yates evidence. It says year to date, Pfizer is more than up in 13%, not up in 15.84% in 2013 over the same period. Will Smith was up 7.4%. AstraZeneca increased by 5.66%. The once the evidence is incoherent, the plan doesn't collapse the pharmaceutical industry. Their evidence is that legalization of pharma gets into the action. They don't have a unique link to the collapse of the pharmaceutical industry. Their evidence says this is the outcome that big pharma is likely to tolerate well unless they get in on the action themselves. It means the plan does not turn out. Their Benson evidence is from its staff writer who obviously has no qualification talking about the way the pharma industry responds. The pot doesn't turn off with all pain products. What the shit does it mean to pot to turn off with opiates? It obviously does not control internally. The Mueller evidence says that there's no impact of biochar because the aerosol dispersal, which can't happen because they can't settle in the air. It also can't be sprayed because of sunlight, smog, humidity, and temperature changes that destroy smaller organisms that are less volatile. There's a limited supply. It's impossible to make the biological weapon that they're talking about. And even if they were used, they would have a limited lifetime and long incubation time, which means they require weeks to take full effect, which means that we can quarantine, which proves our internally turns the DA, but they can't turn the case in no genetic engineering pendergrass intended the idea that some methods such as going to genetic engineering killing is on pandemic national selection warfare. Important device and most of microbes. I don't think terrorists and humans are smart enough to create a microbe that can do worse than nature already does. And if so, it'd be treatable and easy to transmit well now later. But then to worry about nuclear bombs, death tolls massively exaggerated. Light burst doesn't take the only biological fact in 5 years exaggeration more than negative scaremongering since 9/11. The public system invested interest in hyping by church that has grown empirical. Death tolls minimal. Light burst does not conclusive about independence of uniform, mutually reinforcing extremely heavily negations to biological events. Even events were real Roman chemical involved in the easily available off the shelf tests and industrial products and terms of personal murder and everything. Mexico's cast won't see exactly one person was killed in the United States 100 years of the record since 1984. Marginals in the Japanese German connection and Al Qaeda on November 2001 in the American states. It can't.
Either it overcomes burnout.
Either it overcomes burnout. There's no way that the pharmaceutical industry can stop the fucking impact of bioterrorism. They have really good evidence that the bioterrorists are developing awesome weapons, which means they can't overwhelm the internal link. Keller 370 reports of birth flu SARS and tuberculosis contributed to the distortion of the perception of truth less contagious purpose outbreak. It's predictable news can be far worse than the actual threat in order for a large number is necessary. In fact, here can best be both will contract these awful serious disease. Actually, go back to the Canada DA relations collapse is inevitable. Capturing as well be relations, but then over the restraints of the Obama regime, the communists express with the Russian officials and retaliation of the Republicans. If Democrats appear to accommodation tax and bandits bogged down because the Russian homophobia hangover from the Cold War Congress will graduate from Russia during the land of Russian claim to American votes mark their votes. It doesn't take out the impact of the advantage because it's about demographic crisis.
Is it 4:45?
Yeah.
Does anybody need anything?
It'll be teeth. You ready? They have no evidence that CSCs are legalization. They've got no evidence that connects CSCs to legalize. They've got evidence that legalization is a process and it is removing removing sanctions. But they also have a card that CSCs involve a type of regulation. That does not mean that CSCs are legalization. Our Calkins evidence is more qualified than anything they have. Their evidence from the OAS. That's not about the United States. Calkins is about the United States. He's the most qualified person who knows about marijuana. He's much better than anyone that they have. Oh, legalization is a process that explodes limits outweigh because they allow forms of critical thinking and depth. The only portable skills from debate come from predictability, which encourages research. The treaties topic proves that small topics are awesome. The alternative is shallow and superficial debates. You have to set a precedent now before later in the year to discourage a slew of badass, which avoid all of the work we've done. We have to be able to set a precedent early. Their legalization is a process of eliminating prohibitions. The counterproduction explodes limits. Tons of things are part of the process of limiting prohibitions. They justify any type of decrim scheme being read on the app, reducing penalties for production, distribution, or use, or rescheduling marijuana. All of these things are part of the process of eliminating prohibition. Sale is key because it's key to industry scale up. Industry scale up DAs, and it's the only way that we can get around. The decrim counterplan is especially important because this topic. It was the reason why we voted for the topic, because they have legalization and with the advocates of legalized, we have to have decrim. Otherwise they can't solve anything. There's no functional limits because they take away the industry scale of DAs and the decrim counterplan. They have no evidence. They have no evidence that connects the two interpretations. They say we get the decrim counterplan. That's false. Their own evidence says that they justify a host of different models, like the Netherlands model, Uruguay's model, or any other type of just removing penalties rather than actually imposing a form of regulations. And they can't say that they also impose regulations because their definition of legalization just says it's a process of limiting prohibitions. There's no evidence that legalization also involves regulation, so they can't they can't solve it. The impact, yes, there is a limited impact. Miranda said that it overstretched PrEP by giving examples of all the different types of mechanisms. You also impacted why the decrim counterplan is important. So you shouldn't. So nothing I'm saying here is new, and you shouldn't let Jason make any new arguments. Reasonability is arbitrary. It begs the question of the rest of the debate. It begs the question of predictability. If we have more precise definitions that actually connect what the app does to legalization, that impact turns reasonability, because it is unreasonable to expect the negative to have to prepare for it. And also invites judge intervention, because how do we know what is reasonable? If it's reasonable, that explodes limits, because they can prepare. They can prepare for anything. There's no race to the bottom. If our interpretation is arbitrary, they can beat it on the arbitrariness to add. So that gets rid of it. They say we can remove the counterplan. That's false. Their interpretation just says that it is making legal by lawful or judicial action. That does not require a mechanism of regulation. But our Calkins evidence says that production and use and sale must be legal for all of most people. I already explained why their OAS evidence isn't about the United States, so we can't solve our precision office, which is key to limits, because it's relatively early in the year, and they had a new plan tax. We should be able to prepare for. Their evidence they say something about, like, in the context of marijuana. That's not relevant. Why is it? Why their evidence also isn't in the context of marijuana? It's from the OAS. The Calkins evidence is more conclusive. It still criminalizes the sale, and you have to get rid of retail sale and possession for all or most people, so they can't get any offense. Now the only piece of offense extended in the 1NR is app ground outweighs negative ground. They've got no reason why they have to be able to run this app to solve their app ground. They've got no warrant for why app ground is better than neg ground. No new arguments. Neg ground is key to predictable research. Predictable research is important because we have to be able to prepare. They've conceded that app ground is inevitable from the conditionality they have topic specific advantages, like nearly with nearly all, which means they can get out of any type of counterplan. And also legalization is inevitable. The politics that has disappeared, or the midterms that has disappeared on politics, is really bad. So you have to be able to give us a ground. You have to give us ground of the decrim. You have to give us the decrim ground counterplan ground. Otherwise, nothing.
Should be a neg counterplan.
Yeah, it's cannabis exchanges should be a negative counterplan. We have to have the decrim counterplan. Otherwise, the neg isn't going to be able to solve anything. Now, They have no evidence that CSEs are part of legalization. The Rolls and Malkin evidence just says that it involves a regulation framework. You can have a regulation framework, but also not legalize at the same time.
They are liberalization, not
Yes,
legalization.
they are liberal. They are a form of liberalization, and in fact, the bottom of their OAS card says the term has often been associated with liberalization regimes in which the prohibition of certain drugs is ended without necessarily imposing stricter controls. That proves that they don't have a definition of legalized, and they don't have any any other offense. Their bottom of their Rolls evidence also says that things like the Netherlands and or the Uruguay model is topical, and even if the regulation debate is good, that's not enough. It's not enough to justify any of their offense are talking drugs and or like evidence from the one and two. The only ones that has the word CSCs and legalization in the same text that says a viable alternative to full legalization exists in a loophole existing within existing within drug policies. That should be accounted upon. They don't have any evidence that connects CSCs to legalization, and then there's even a tiny risk of a limits is that through allowing different forms of decriminalization, you have to vote negative.
Yeah, they justify any kind of act where there's massive limit on the sale of drugs, so like only certain entities, only like.
It also magnifies our ground arguments because they justify any type of app that has any type of restriction on the sale of drugs or anything else that allows them to functionally do nothing with the app because they don't fully legalize. The full legalization is key.
Brittany's app, like only black people can legalize. Literally, is an app that could.
Yeah, only black people can legalize would be an app. They've got no evidence, and the precision is key to limits. They've got no evidence to connect CSCs to legalization. If they can't show you that, they can't win the debate.
No, I was talking about the ones.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm gonna be starting on reasonability. I don't know if you want to like jump down there or whatever. I'll just read that.
I'll do it later.
Cool. All right, is everybody good? Good is good enough should control your evaluation of every argument. The negative advances. Competing interpretation places you as either the affirmative savior or executioner. Topicality is just the equivalent of the death penalty. Such punishment is not justified when affirmative can craft an interpretation of the topic that preserves equitable ground and fosters intelligent discussion that is reasonable. Vote affirmative on topicality even if their interpretation is moderately better. It's not an affirmative burden to prove that offense, to prove offense on topicality or net offense on topicality. It's just a question of whether or not they've proven that debate is impossible. Two reasons. One is substance trade-off. The negative will always choose a more limiting interpretation. This means they will always have the strategic upper hand because you can find any interpretation to craft to your desire. The result is an incentive for the negative pick a set of strategies that are dependent on frequent topicality debates. It's better to debate affirmatives that are mostly topical than always debate the procedural issue of topicality. The resolution was chosen to discuss legalization of marijuana in order to improve knowledge and advocacy in relation to the topic. Substantive discussion, not definitional bickering, achieves its outcome best. Resolutions change dictionaries do not. Your job is to reward debates about this year's topic. Second is it causes a race to nowhere. Competing interpretation makes the most strategic negative option the most limiting interpretation, excludes the bulk of the top by causing a race to an arbitrary, convoluted set of indefensible affirmative arguments. This is why your interpretation literally devolves down to, oh no, we don't get the D-crim counterplan. This is a bad form of evolution for the topic. They can always pick a specific counterplan, specific DA that they could lose because of a crafty affirmative, a crafty add-on, or a crafty advantage. And say that's a reason to vote negative. It also means that the negative always wins and it incentivizes a convoluted interpretation of the resolution because you're always trying to distort the words mostly in your favor. You should evaluate it wholly in terms of reasonability. Now, they will make an argument and they are probably feeling right now, oh no, the 2AR is so goddamn new. The debate has to expand. It went from a 2-minute T violation of the block to 6 minutes of the 2&R. I obviously get to respond to all of the new arguments made. Their only impact limits is predictable research. Researching this is a network because they have said they will just be able to read it as a counterplan. The only question is whether or not it's affirmative or negative ground. So the argument that it explodes their research burden doesn't make any sense because they will never really research these strategies as part of the negative arsenal, which means are you really burdening Minnesota or anybody else in the debate community by asking them to debate this affirmative or debate any of the affirmatives that they listed? That we could read all of their evidence just as that we are not full legalization. That does not mean that we are not legalization. Extend our counter interpretation, which comes from the OAS, and indicates that legalization is inherently a process, and it also is a good interpretation because it is in the context of drug problems in America. That's the title of the article. The OAS also includes the United States and was a negotiation that we had over whether or not the legalization of drugs should happen. It says it's the process of eliminating legal prohibitions on production, distribution, and use of a controlled substance. This is a reasonable interpretation of the topic because you still get any disadvantage based on production, distribution, and use of a controlled substance. You get the kids' disadvantage, you get the treaties disadvantage, you get the form of disadvantage, although their version is like a little shittier. I'm sure Georgia has a better one. You get any form of disadvantage. The only ground that they lose is based on the sale of marijuana. However, the only definition and only pieces of evidence that they have that indicates that sale is a necessary part of legalization says that it is a form of legalization, not that it is a necessary component of legalization. Our OAS evidence indicates this is a process. We meet our own interpretation because our rules and market evidence says that what will the regulation framework be that replaces prohibition? The fact that we are a process of replacing prohibition by imposing a form of regulation means we meet this interpretation under a cannabis shearing club. The only thing you're not allowed to do is sell marijuana. You can still grow, you can still use it, you can still shear it with your friends that are get every single disadvantage based off of this. And the only ground loss that they have pointed to is the loss of the decrim counterplan. However, they still get the decrim counterplan. They just get different versions of the decrim counterplan. Even if they do not prep them, they can still decriminalize things such as sale. They can still decriminalize things such as production, distribution, because we legalize those aspects of the marijuana trade, which means they still get the decrim counterplan. They just don't get this decrim counterplan. And why exactly does that make it impossible for the negative to debate? The debate topic is like an arms race. The negative will always have generic critiques, counterplans, most limiting T violations, politics disadvantages that they can go for. And you have to give the affirmative some leeway, especially at critical junctions in the year, like at the end of the first semester, in order to know how they can innovate. Particularly as an affirmative argument, because if you're always just racing to most limiting interpretation, what exactly is the affirmative supposed to know? What they are to prepare for? What exactly is the affirmative supposed to do when they go into the winter break and say, I can cut these affirmatives? No, because then they will just show the negative will have a new T violation. Say you're not topical and you will lose our business dictionary. Actually, what's the next argument I want to make? Oh yeah, Their argument is that they don't get any foreign disadvantage because legalization happens now. Neat idea. Unanimous counterplan, USFG, and the state should not legalize. They obviously get this. There's two reasons why they have zero negative ground now. They have not explained why any of the ground laws or limits arguments they've connected are linked to not having the affirmative sell marijuana. Our counter interpretation hedges against most of their limits case list because it says that we view it as a process and therefore justify the rescheduling counterplan. However, you cannot do the rescheduling counterplan because you don't legalize the distribution or use of marijuana if it's just rescheduled. You reschedule it to be something along the lines of medical marijuana, which is not the same thing as legalization, which means they have to prove that our counter interpretation, other than the affirmative, actually leads to the case list that they're talking about. And you have to connect every single goddamn example that they gave you back to our counter interpretation rather than just some nebulous interpretation of what the affirmative is going to lose. Now, even if we do not have a specific reason why the Cannabis Sharing Club affirmative is necessary for affirmative ground, the process of the topicality debate inherently requires the affirmative to jump through hoops to justify why they should exist. You should go towards the trend of innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent, because you don't have to justify our life within the topic via this inconsistency interpretation. Now, they say that conditionality boosts half-ground. False. There are so many functional limits. You could get alternate regulation counterplans, cannabis exchanges, state monopoly stores, all things that we have read because there are alternate regulations and ways to get cannabis that have built-in net benefits to test the affirmative. Conditionality also solves neg ground.
Even if we lose the counter interpretation, like it's not offense.
Even if we lose counter interpretation, it's not offense defense because we can also prove that we reasonably meet their interpretation because their Calkins evidence was tagged as means production and use be legal for all or most people, which we did.
Wait, I know there weren't many like cards read, but just so I don't have to sort through the docs.
Still on. Yeah. We also streamed the decisions. Yeah, sure. microphone is turned back on.
Fair warning. Okay. This was a really good debate, and I thought it was really close, partly for a lot of reasons, but I ended up voting affirmative. Um, and I think so. I'll go through each part of this debate, but I ultimately thought the app interpretation was just as precise as the negatives interpretation. I'll get that in a second. And I thought the other way I would vote negative is through all your limits offense. And I thought it was a combination of functional limits, checking some of the limits explosion arguments that I thought were persuasive, and that I think that a lot of the 2NR examples and 1NR examples aren't necessarily linked to the removing prohibitions on the sale of marijuana. And so I think that portion is where you really need to get a lot of offense to, because that is what I think their counterpretation is, that they can remove prohibitions on the production and distribution of marijuana, but they exclude the sale. And I'll go why I think a lot of your examples don't necessarily apply to that. First, I'll go through the T cards, because I think that's pretty important for just evaluating the rest of this debate. For your neck cards, I thought your first piece of Calkins evidence was in the 1 and 2 was your best piece. That legalization means we must legalize the sale of drugs. It says we have to include the sale of drugs for all or most people. I think after that, though, the cards don't necessarily get as good as you want them to. The second piece of Calkins card in the 1 and C, to me, just says that the Spanish law doesn't necessarily criminalize sale. I don't know how that necessarily applies to the app, or why that goes so far as saying that legalization of production and distribution, or like removing prohibitions of production and distribution, wouldn't be legalization, other than the first card, which is what I think your better card is. Now, I think the block Calkins cards are a little weird. So I think the first piece of evidence says legalization. It's weird because your cards say there are many ways to liberalize short of full legalization. And I kind of agreed with the 2AR's characterization, and maybe I'm interpreting this differently than you are, maybe interpreting differently than the author intends, but I don't interpret full legalization as the only type of legalization. Like, full legalization to me means like full, legalize everything. And it even says there are many ways to liberalize short of full legalization. I thought this card was good for you up until the 2NR. And the reason why is because in the 2NR, you read the underlined part of the OAS evidence that they never read, but that card says that legalization is akin to liberalizing policy. And so I thought actually reading that hurts you in this debate. I thought if you hadn't read that, it would have made the definition, like, that was something that I thought Calkins pretty specifically concluded negative on this issue, but that part really put doubt in my head on whether there was something short of full legalization that could still be a type of legalization. I think your talking drugs card is it just says that there's something. It's another card that just says suggestions range from full legalization of cannabis to cannabis social clubs. But that for me doesn't go so far as to say cannabis social clubs cannot be a form of legalization. Now the AF cards, I think their OAS card is their best card. And it's only one of two cards, so whatever. It says the legalization is the process of eliminating legal prohibitions on the production and distribution and use of the substance. So I think that pretty clearly is what the app does. And like I said, the underlying part of that you read, I think was a little actually ended up hurting you. I think the roles of Merck and Evans is totally irrelevant for this debate. It's like just literally cards as a regulation framework is cannabis social clubs, totally irrelevant, not a thing, and nothing about legalization in that card. I think for me the main problem in the 2NRs at the end of the day, I think functional limits either solves your arguments or that your arguments aren't linked to their interpretation. Now, I'll go through those examples. I think the Uruguay Netherlands model arguments in your Calkins cards explicitly cite sale as being a factor within those models as something that makes those models unique. So I don't know why the AF interpretation would necessarily lead to those model of AFs if sale is and something that is if those restrictions of sale are removed. I also generally agree that the other things like the treaty DA, the treaty amendment counterplan, other advantage counterplans, the kids DA, etc. I could probably go on, but all of those are generics that could easily like apply to their F. And now the big example I think you have going for you is the decriminalization counterplan, right? Like you remove the decriminalization counterplan. First, this was weird because the 2AR is like there are other forms of decriminalization. I'm not really sure how competitive those other forms are. It's kind of new in the 2AR, and I'm like pretty like meh about that. More importantly for me is I'm not really sure in the 2NR you ever really explain to me or sit on why the decriminalization counterplan is like the most important thing for negative ground against the marijuana act. I think had you sat on the decriminalization counter, like you made arguments for why, like you made a bunch of arguments why they would exclude the decriminalization counterplan and why like the app is a type of decriminalization, but I didn't have a high enough level of explanation for me for why that one argument is like very crucial for negative ground. And especially when I think the affirmative wins a bunch of other arguments about how there are other counter plans and there's like so many other disads that you get. That means that, especially when I think the main 2NR impact is like a combination of this precision predictability argument and just like this generic like limits are key to like critical thinking and testing, and I think like you get more than enough negative ground to do that. I don't know why decrim is unique. And I think there's like a lot of good arguments you can make for that. Like it's the core of the topic. Like seriously, this is like the topic: legalization versus decriminalization. This is like the core of the legal debates. Maybe it's a moment where in the 1NR and the 2NR you just like, or like you say is not important in the 1AR new argument. I'm gonna read a card. It's like this is like super important. Like legalization versus decriminalization debates are the core of the topic. Something. That makes it a little more persuasive. Now, there's this app argument floating around in the 1AR and 2AR that's like this topic kind of blows for the app. There's like no creativity, and the app's like running out, and they need it for innovation. And maybe I just like kind of agree with this, but I think this topic is already kind of dead by this tournament in a lot of ways, except for marijuana. And it isn't a large part of the 2AR, but it was part of the 1AR and 2AR. And I ultimately thought they got more access to that one tiny offensive argument than you did to like your main. Like I thought, like basically like functional limits and like that your offensive arguments didn't necessarily link to the sale component meant there was like very low risk of your offense, but I thought there was like a pretty high risk of their like one offensive argument that wasn't like very greatly impacted, but both teams are making arguments why neg ground is more important than app ground. You're making arguments why app ground is more important than neg ground. At the end of the day, I think their counterfeitation solves most of the negative ground components for me. And so that was that. Now the precision stuff, this was like kind of a wash at the end of the day for me. I wasn't really sure how to like come to the conclusion of like OAS is better than Calkins or Calkins is better than OAS. It's weird because you're like indicting their OAS card, and like your OAS indictment kind of makes sense to me. Like it's not like necessarily US policymakers, but then they're like on the other hand, I think their OAS card, like as part of the citation, is like it's the OAS. This was like a special panel put together by like a bunch of drug experts, and like I don't know, like do I just not care about international drug experts? On the other hand, you never really give an argument in the 2NR for me for why the Calkins person is like super qualified. And I looked at the qualifications and just like in the site, and it's just like Hawkins is a professor at like some university in the US, but they're just like
He is so qualified.
is he so qualified? I don't know. Like part of it is I don't know as much about like all these marijuana authors because that's not the area I'm like totally put on. But to do neg work, but if you just like put a bunch more qualifications about marijuana, I could be like totally persuaded. Like it's like more precise. Now I'm not like sure that that's the impact you're really going for in the 2NR, just like this precision impact. So I'm not sure I would have evaluated that. But if, I think given there was all these functional limit arguments going around, I think I would have been more persuaded by like a precision argument in the 2NR. Just like our interpretation is the most precise. We're going to go for precision is the like biggest internal link to everything. And so as is, I thought like there wasn't much neg offense. There was like a risk of aft offense. So like even under competing interpretations, I think I could consider voting aft. Now if it came down to like the reasonability stuff, I like thought it was like I thought about it a lot just because I think there's like a pretty huge disconnect between the 1AR and 2AR on reasonability, like a huge disconnect between the 1AR and 2AR and reasonability. Now I like thought like the functional limit stuff was there. I thought there was enough stuff about this aft ground stuff there. There's just like just enough on those two things, which one you just debate. But I was definitely not. I was like I was going to evaluate this debate by competing interpretations. And like I thought it was weird that you started the 2AR with that because it was reasonability was a blip in the 1AR, and so I think you should have started by just being like this topic. Our counter interpretation solves all their negative offense, and by the way, this topic sucks for the app, so give us this interpretation, which is like ultimately what I voted on, because you did enough like after the reasonability stuff, but it wasn't like it would have been much better ethos wise for you, I think, if you had just started with that and just been like, okay, we're not going with reasonability. Yeah, that was like the gist of my decision.
Right. One question.
Yeah.
Just for the not like precision or ground, just the limits stuff. Their
Mhm.
counter interpretation does say that it is just removing restrictions. So even if the app does apply a regulation, the counter interpretation still is like we can decrease. It is like they justify a version of the debate where the app can just remove prohibitions. Do you think I just need to like? It's not what you do, it's what you justify more, or do you think it looks at it differently?
I think combination of not what you do, what you justify, and I agree with how you're like reading that card. That's like it's just eliminating legal prohibitions. I think the way you impacted that in the 2NR was like saying that removes the decrim counter plan, and then most of the other examples you gave were like the Uruguay model and like Netherlands model and stuff, which is like totally irrelevant because that's like stuff that is sale based. I think if you just sat on that and gave a bunch of other examples of affirmatives that would just remove any prohibition, like any prohibition, just go through like all the different prohibitions on production, all the different prohibitions on distribution, and just like talk about like these are like 30 new marijuana apps that like you could not you don't have to get 30, but you know like give examples that are more tied to like the offensive arguments that make sense for you, because the examples as is in the 2NR don't really make sense given the interpretation and counter interpretation, except for this like decrim kind of thing. And I think if you've done that, I probably can vote neg, because I think once you win like some more like offense that like functional limits may not check as much, then I can easily imagine voting neg because they're not winning as much offense either.
Should we have gone for the strategy?
No. You made the right choice.
Right.
The Canada DA was kind of ludicrous.
What
I
about
think
the farmer that said, you know?
the Pharma DA, I thought Pharma DA was the only other option for you. I thought I like spent time like before the 2NR, just kind of going through the cards. I thought the 1AR just spent a boatload of time there, reading a bunch of impact defense, a bunch of other stuff that kind of made sense to me. I thought they had like other advantages going around that had less defense from the block, and so I thought they probably would have won that debate had that gone down. It was the 1AR undercovered T and just barely did enough for me to get on like the two arguments that they had to win the debate. And I think like you did have this like 2NR moment where you were like no new 2AR arguments, and I thought about that. I like looked at my flow and I was like, they did make like functional limits check arguments and arguments about why like half ground outweighs net ground. Their interpretation is like key to app flex, and so like that was enough for me. But I also kind of a little bit agree with like the 2AR's characterization that like it was a small, like fairly small portion of the block, and while a lot of like the 2NR was tied to the 1NR, there was like a lot of new explanation examples given that I thought allowed like new 2AR examples when answering like when making like the functional limits arguments, things like that.
So for the 1AR, what do you think I could have shaved time on to spend a little bit more time?
The Pharma DA.
The Pharma DA. Just like
You spent like an
Sorry.
insane amount of time on the Pharma DA.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know. I just like I think you could have probably cut time in half on the impact defense level, and I don't know. Yeah, it was really you spent a lot of time on impact defense. Like an extra like 20 to 30 seconds on T would have done you a lot here, and made it really tough for the 2NR then, because the 2NR is able to go for this because there's very little on the 1AR. Good luck. Both are debating, all right.